Chapter 957. In the prison, Chin-Yuru shivered and shrank to one side. She had never expected that she would be sent to the Ministry of Justice and even be sentenced to execution. How could it be? She was now a member of the royal family. How could she be sentenced to execution? There must be something wrong. She should be a princess by now, right? She was more noble than Xiao Wanru in the past. Why was she in prison? Chin-Yuru, someone is here to visit you, the female jailer said coldly. Who is it? Chin-Yuru rushed to the door and said eagerly. She was overjoyed. It must be her grandfather and father who came to save her. Who else can it be? Chin-Yuru, look at who I am. The woman who came and lifted the cloak on her head and looked at Chin-Yuru with hatred. Chin-Yuru's appearance was really satisfying. She was thin and dry, without any of her former beauty. Who are you? Chin-Yuru didn't recognize her at once and took a step back. Who am I? Can't you recognize me? Ning Kaisian looked at the prison and sneered. Back then, you made me go to prison. Now you're also in prison. It's karma. Chin-Yuru, you flattered Di Yan wholeheartedly at that time. Did you ever think that you'd have such a day? You are. Ning Kaisian. Chin-Yuru screamed in horror. She recognized her. She suddenly sat on the ground and then stepped back. Under the dim light of the prison, Ning Kaisian's face looked shaky and a little gloomy. Don't come to me. If you die, it has nothing to do with me. I didn't want to kill you. Go. Chin-Yuru screamed. She was so frightened that she shook her hands and closed her eyes. Ning Kaisian was dead. How could she appear here? In the past 3 years, although Ning Kaisian was dead, Chin-Yuru and Di Yan always mentioned Ning Kaisian when they quarreled. For Di Yan, Ning Kaisian was like the cinnabar in his heart. The unobtainable was always the best, and it was Chin-Yuru's fault. As for Chin-Yuru, Ning Kaisian was like a piece of dirt stuck on her face. Even if she washed it clean, she still felt that it was always there. A person who had been dead for 3 years suddenly appeared in this dim cell. How could Chin-Yuru not be afraid? At that time, Ning Kaisian died in the cell. Chin-Yuru, are you afraid? Ning Kaisian looked at Chin-Yuru coldly and asked coldly. No, don't look for me. It's not me. I didn't hurt you. It's Di Yan. It has nothing to do with me. Go look for Di Yan. Chin-Yuru waved her hands frantically and spoke without thinking. She just wanted Ning Kaisian to leave. If I don't look for you, who should I look for? Chin-Yuru, you are not dead, so how can I die? I have to see you being beheaded. Ning Kaisian sneered. You're not dead. Chin-Yuru slowly closed her eyes. Of course I won't die. Chin-Yuru, you're so lucky. You're about to be beheaded, aren't you? Not bad. Ning Kaisian curled her lips and looked at Chin-Yuru condescendingly. Have you ever thought of everything in front of you? At that time, you got carried away and married into Duke Yong's mansion. What about now? I'm a relative of the royal family. Get out of the way. Knowing that Ning Kaisian was not dead, Chin-Yuru became bold and stared at Ning Kaisian to argue. A relative of the royal family? You mean Prince Heching's mansion, right? I heard that the people of Prince Heching's mansion told others that he wouldn't want a vicious and heinous granddaughter. Even if you are his flesh and blood, so what? Prince Heching's mansion really doesn't lack granddaughters. Your good father is very fertile. He found more than a dozen young ladies from outside the mansion and inside the mansion. With you, they can't get married. Ning Kaisian sneered mercilessly. Seeing Chin-Yuru become more miserable, she was happier. She stepped into the cell door and walked to Chin-Yuru's side. Looking at Chin-Yuru sitting on the ground and losing her former dignity, she raised her foot and stepped on Chin-Yuru's hand fiercely. Ah! Qin Yuru screamed in pain and pushed Ning Caishian's foot hard. Ning Caishian staggered and had to take a step back. Qin Yuru, how dare you hit me? After saying that, she kicked Qin Yuru's chin, and her lips immediately bled. Qin Yuru was in so much pain that she threw herself forward and pushed Ning Caishian to the ground. The two of them fought on the floor of the cell for a long time. The female jailer outside heard the sound inside and came in to pull them apart. Their hair was messy and even their faces were scratched. Bitch, you will die a horrible death. Ning Caishian was so angry that she scolded. She did not expect that she would suffer losses in this situation. Qin Yuru was raised in a family of generals. In the past, when she was in Jiangzhou, she did not pay much attention to martial arts and would go out from time to time. Although she did not practice much, she was stronger than Ning Caishian. Bitch, so what if you are not dead now? Look at you now. Have you entered a brothel? Qin Yuru was not willing to show weakness and scolded. You bitch, you are a woman from a brothel. I am going to be the legal wife of Child Wang soon, but now you are going to be beheaded, and you will not be able to reincarnate into a good body in your next life. Ning Caishian covered the scars on her face with a handkerchief and scolded angrily. Child Wang. How can there be a blind Child Wang? Are you a guest in a brothel? If so, it can't be true. How could a woman from a brothel be the legal wife? Qin Yuru sneered. At this time, she also threw caution to the wind. She had been trembling with fear in the prison and had long been depressed. Ning Caishian came here to vent her anger. Now she could scold as much as she wanted regardless of anything. Qin Yuru, you bitch, why is your mouth so stinky? I am going to marry Child Wang Xingxue, the nephew of Marquis Xing, don't you know that? Ning Caishian was not willing to be ridiculed by Qin Yuru and wanted to scratch Qin Yuru's face again. The female jailer pulled her out of the prison door with a bad look. Although she had gained some benefits, it might be ruined if Ning Caishian shouted loudly. The female jailer also regretted letting such a woman from a brothel in. She was misled by Qin Yuru. When Ning Caishian came here, although she was dressed well, she did not have a servant girl with her. It seemed that she really did not come from a good family. The prison became quiet. Qin Yuru covered her face, which was twitching in pain, and thought secretly. Wang Xingxue, the nephew of Marquis Xing. She suddenly thought of this and looked at the prison door in astonishment. She really knew this Wang Xingxue. Wasn't he Ning Caishian's brother-in-law? She knew this matter was caused by a quarrel between her and Di Yan, which involved Ning Caishian. Di Yan smashed a few things and left. The more Qin Yuru thought about it, the angrier she became. When she passed by Ning's mansion, she deliberately stopped for a while and saw Ning Xueqing coming out with Wang Xingxue. She asked someone to inquire about Ning Xueqing's identity, and even Wang Xingxue's identity was clear. Ning Xueqing was Wang Xingxue's concubine, and it was said that she became a concubine because of an accident. As for what the accident was, it was not very clear, but one thing was sure, that it had something to do with Marquis Xing's mansion. Ning Xueqing and Wang Xingxue had been friends for a long time, and Wang Xingxue had originally planned to marry her. Later, when Qin Yuru quarreled with Di Yan, she used this matter to hurt Di Yan from time to time, saying that Di Yan fell in love with this kind of fickle woman. The Ning sisters were the same. They had affairs with men before getting married, and no one knew how many men they had slept with. How could they steal her brother-in-law? After Qin Yuru understood it, she suddenly fell to the ground and laughed wildly. Ning Xueqing probably had never thought that her sister would steal her husband, who was also the principal wife. If she were not in prison now, she would definitely take Di Yan to see it clearly. But she was still in prison now. As she laughed, her laughter turned into wild cries. She was a member of the royal family. How could she end up in such a situation? Had Prince Hehe's mansion given up on her? That day, Prince Hehe had spoken nicely to her and acknowledged her. Why did it become like this now? Qin Yuru, someone is here to visit the prison. The female jailer's fawning voice suddenly came from the door. Then with a flash, Xiao Wanru appeared at the door of the prison with Yujie. Compared with Ning Kaixian just now, Xiao Wanru could tell at a glance that she was of noble status. Princess Chen, please come in. This person fought with another woman just now. Princess Chen, you'd better not go in, lest you be beaten by this crazy woman. The female jailer was particularly fawning, for fear of alarming Princess Chen. Princess Chen in front of her was not the woman from the brothel just now. She could do nothing about it even if she was beaten. Someone came to visit her. Who was she? Xiao Wanru asked casually. It was a good-looking woman from the brothel. When she came in to visit the prison, she fought with Qin Yuru like two crazy women. The female jailer looked at Qin Yuru, who was in a mess in the prison, with disdain and said. Xiao Wanru waved her hand and motioned her to leave. Before the female jailer left, she threatened Qin Yuru fiercely, "It's a great blessing that Princess Chen came to see you. If you don't care about the blessing, you will be miserable." Qin Yuru shrank. Of course, she knew that the female jailer's words were not empty talk. Looking at Xiao Wanru's delicate face, she suddenly crawled to the prison door and said, "Second sister, help me." I didn't mean it. Who asked her to harm others so viciously? Second sister, help me, help me. I can tell you the secret of Duke Yong's mansion. She didn't know that Duke Yong's mansion no longer existed in the prison. First miss, what do you want to tell me? Is it about you being divorced or the fact that Duke Yong's mansion keeps many women and plans to give them away? Xiao Wanru looked at Qin Yuru in front of her calmly. Her face was scratched and bloody, and some of her hair was torn off and scattered. You know. Qin Yuru widened her eyes in shock and looked at Qin Yuru in horror. This was indeed her trump card. Although she didn't read the letter from Madame D, she knew it in her heart. In the past 3 years, she had seen some things in private. When she thought of it, she had this secret. Qin Yuru, don't you have anything else to say? Xiao Wanru said lightly with a little coldness in the uneven shadow of her long eyelashes. I want to know what happened in Jiangzhou. Chapter 958. What happened in Jiangzhou? What happened in Jiangzhou? Qin Yuru was stunned for a moment and raised her head, not understanding what she meant. Is everything okay in Jiangzhou? Xiao Wanru said lightly. Her eyes were deep as if they were glazed. However, when she looked closely, her eyes were deep. Qin Yuru, if you want to tell me the secret of Jiangzhou, ask someone to pass the message to me. Otherwise, there will be no next. Everyone has agreed that you killed your mother. Even if you have the blood of the Chu family flowing in your body, so what? No one in Prince Heching's mansion will help you next year. Xiao Wanru said slowly. After that, she turned around and walked out without looking at Qin Yuru. Xiao Wanru, what do you mean? Qin Yuru didn't understand and shouted loudly. First miss, our princess doesn't mean anything. It means that no one can help you except our princess. This is a gift from our princess. If you need help, you can think of a way. If there is no way, you can wait for death. You will be executed in a few months. Yujie threw a purse in her hand to Qin Yuru and said disdainfully. Qin Yuru reached out to grab the purse and opened it eagerly. There were some scattered silver and small banknotes in it. It was a thick stack. Although they were small, they were what Qin Yuru needed most at the moment. If it was a large amount, it couldn't be saved after being found by the jailer. If it was a small amount, it could be hidden separately and it would be easier to bribe people. Holding the lotus fragrance tightly in her hand, Qin Yuru gritted her teeth. She had no one to rely on now, so she could only rely on herself. She couldn't think of anything special about Jiangzhou. The only person she could think of now was Qi Tianyu. She didn't know, but Qi Tianyu might know. Yes, it was Qi Tianyu. No one could save her, so she could save herself. If she could find out something from Qi Tianyu, she could make a deal with Xiao Wanru. She was now Princess Chen, Thinking of this, there was a glimmer of hope in Qin Yuru's panicked eyes. Only Qi Tianyu could save her. She was going to find Qi Tianyu. Xiao Wanru came out of the cell of the Ministry of Justice. After standing still, she took a deep breath. Yu Jie waved at the jailer. The female jailer hurried over and bowed to her. After stuffing the bag over, the female prison warden started to fawn over him. The one inside has some relationship with our princess. Although it's not a good relationship, now that she has fallen into such a situation, our princess is kind and doesn't care about her. If there's anything, please make an exception. Yu Jie held the head of the prison and said with her head lowered. Yes, I understand, princess is really kind. The female prison head nodded repeatedly. The matter between Princess Chen and this young Miss Qin had been widely publicized during this period of time. Everyone was talking about this pair of former sisters. Good people would be rewarded, and bad people would be punished by God. Who was it that came before? How did you beat her up like this? Yu Jie rolled her eyes and asked. I don't know who she was. She was like a madman. The two of them fought each other as soon as they met. She said that she was a girl from a brothel and that a nephew of Marquis Xing wanted to marry her. Her surname was Wang. Oh, by the way, I remember. Her surname was Ning, and her name was Ning Kaixian. The female prison warden thought for a while and said. She was standing far away at that time, but she still heard some of what the two of them said out of control in excitement. Ning Kaixian. Yu Jie paused for a moment. She knew this name, and she was even more familiar with the nephew of Marquis Xing. After talking with the female prison warden for a while, Yu Jie hurriedly got into the carriage. Xiao Wanru was already waiting for her in the carriage. After she got into the carriage, the coachman turned to the street. This time, she went out to see Nanny Dong. Such a thing happened in Duke Yong's mansion. If someone investigated it carefully, it was very likely that they would find Nanny Dong. At that time, when Xiao Yanru broke into Fanglan embroidery shop, Nanny Dong happened to leave. There were always smart people in the world. Xiao Wanru had to make arrangements first. Otherwise, Butterfly Clothing Shop would be in trouble. Chu Luyue would not suffer such a big loss in silence. In fact, the cause of all this was the account book at the beginning. Your Highness, I just asked. It was Ning Kaixian who went to see First Miss before. It was also said that Ning Kaixian was going to marry the nephew of Marquis Xing, whose surname was Wang. Your Highness, do you think it was Wang Xingxue? As soon as Yu Jie sat down, she immediately asked anxiously. This matter was so mysterious that she didn't quite believe it. You said that it was a girl from a brothel and that it was scolded by First Mississippi. Is Ning Kaixian really not dead? Xiao Wanru had once said that Ning Kaixian would not die so easily. Therefore, after being stunned, Yu Jie recalled the past and found it not so strange. Ning Kaixian? Xiao Wanru repeated thoughtfully. Yes, it means that Ning Kaixian is going to marry Wang Xingxue. Your Highness, Ning Kaixian is really fine as you said. Yu Jie said. At that time, it was she who reported the news to the princess. At that time, the princess was very sure that Ning Kaixian would not die. At first, she was also dubious, but now she admired her princess more and more. This was also the reason why she could agree with the shocking news that Ning Kaixian was not dead after a while, although she did not accept it at first. How can a person like her die so easily? Xiao Wanru smiled slightly, and her eyes became leisurely. Xiao Yanru was vicious, and so was Ning Kaixian. At present, Ning Caixian's return reminded her of another thing, the trap about Yan Shi. In the last life, without Ning Kaixian, such a trap was also set. Unexpectedly, this time it fell on Ning Kaixian. Wang Xingxue and Ning Kaixian were together, and she said that she wanted to be with Wang Xingxue. If she became his wife, her younger sister could only be his concubine. If it were any other woman who robbed her brother-in-law, she might have to admit it, but Ning Xueqing was different. A woman like her would not tolerate such an insult. This was a good loophole. If it was used properly, there would be unexpected benefits. In a while, ask Qing to check the place where Child Yen went before and who that girl is, Xiao Wanru said. Originally, this matter had nothing to do with her, but since it involved Wang Xingxue and might be useful in the future, she had to send someone to check it out first. I understand. Yu Jie nodded and agreed. The carriage went all the way, made a few turns, and entered Butterfly Clothing Shop. There were still a lot of customers in Butterfly Clothing Shop. As soon as they entered the door, they saw many womenfolk picking exquisite lace and toggelan loop buttons. Some of them were taken away directly, while others were not. They asked the shop staff to sew the clothes they liked when they made clothes for them. Hearing that Xiao Wanru had come, Madame Dong invited her to the accounting office, and the others left. After sitting down, Xiao Wanru asked, "Has anyone from Fanglan embroidery shop come here these days?" "No." Madame Dong shook her head. It had been very peaceful recently, and nothing had happened. Even Wei Dehai had not sent anyone to keep an eye on him. Something happened. Even if they have the intention, they can't keep an eye on you for a while, but they may find out later. Xiao Wanru said calmly. Then what should we do? Madame Dong said nervously. Butterfly Clothing Shop was also her painstaking effort. If someone comes here, you are just a simple person in charge. Everything has nothing to do with you. Just say that it was your boss who asked you to do it. Xiao Wanru said. That's the best. But what if they can't use soft tactics? This was what Madame Dong was most worried about. She had no power or influence. If they used the power of the government, she couldn't deal with it at all. The Imperial Palace has also been involved in what happened recently. No one will take the initiative to stir up trouble. If it really goes to the Emperor, they won't get any benefits. Xiao Wanru said confidently. Your Highness, do you mean that they don't dare to do it openly and will only stab people in the dark? Madame Dong breathed a sigh of relief. She was afraid that someone would use hard means. It's also very powerful to stab people in the dark. Be careful. If you can't deal with it, send a message to me. Don't be fooled by others. Xiao Wanru said after a moment of silence. Yes, I understand. Madame Wei nodded repeatedly. She was most afraid of using the power of the government. Now it turned to stab people in the dark, so she had to deal with it carefully. Wei Dehai doesn't dare to take action recently, and it may take some time. Of course, we have to prevent them from stab people in the dark. Xiao Wanru was not very relieved. Madame Dong was not only facing Wei Dehai, but also Chu Luiyue. If Chu Luiyue took action, he would not be kind. She had to think of a way to make people understand that Butterfly Clothing Shop could not be bullied at will. Master, don't worry. I will be careful in everything and not let anyone take advantage of the loophole. Madame Dong promised again and calmed down. With her master around, no one could really dig her out. Is there any eyesore coming recently? Xiao Wanru was still worried. She always felt that Butterfly Clothing Shop, which had been fine recently, was also very worrying. Nothing. Madame Dong thought for a moment and shook her head with certainty. Your Highness, if there is really something wrong, I will definitely report it to you. It's good that there is nothing wrong. Xiao Wanru nodded and stood up. If she stayed here for too long, she would arouse suspicion. I'll go upstairs to see if there are any new varieties. There are new varieties. The embroidery and buckles are newly made, which are a step further than the previous ones. There are also some other embroidery patterns under the embroidery, which make the clothes look more girlish. They have been praised by many misses. Madame Dong said as she led Xiao Wanru out. New? Xiao Wanru asked with a smile, like an ordinary customer, very curious about the new products in the shop. Your Highness, you will know it later. Please let me keep you in suspense. Your Highness, you will know it after you go to have a look. Madame Dong said as she led Xiao Wanru to the second floor. The escalator on the second floor was not small, and 4 or 5 people would not bump into each other. However, someone bumped into it today. A person rolled down from above and ran into Xiao Wanru's group. Xiao Wanru was the first one to bear the brunt. Chapter 959. Xiao Wanru also saw the person on the stairs, but she couldn't react in time. She closed her eyes and tried her best to move aside when the person on the stairs hit her. Yujie, who was behind Xiao Wanru, hurriedly reached out to grab Xiao Wanru's clothes and pulled her back hard. Xiao Wanru staggered back a few steps and happened to avoid the person who rushed down from the stairs. Madame Dong also reacted at this time and held Xiao Wanru's hand. The man bumped into Yujie, causing her to take 2 steps back. She was barely able to hold the railing of the stairs. A few more people appeared at the stairs. Among them was a beautiful girl in splendid clothes. Seeing the scene in front of her, she was also shocked and said hurriedly, "Second brother, what's wrong with you?" The person who hit Yujie stood still. He was a young man in his 20s. He was good-looking, but his eyes were hollow. At first glance, one could tell that he was a man who had been drinking too much. At this time, he fixed his eyes on Xiao Wanru, which were almost like hooks. Yujie moved her body and stood in front of Xiao Wanru. She scolded angrily, "How dare you? Who are you? How dare you offend our master? Which family is your miss from?" The young man looked behind Yujie in amazement. "Second brother, how can you be so rude?" Before Yujie could answer, the woman on the stairs said angrily, "Little sister, don't interrupt me. I have something to do. When it's over, I'll take you to buy a good one." The young man reached out to grab Yujie and pulled her to the side impatiently. "Little girl, make way. I have to apologize to your Mississippi. I accidentally slipped just now and almost disturbed her." Although he spoke politely, his look showed that he was not a decent person. Yujie was so angry that her face turned red. She pushed the young man away with her backhand. She was very strong. At this time, when she exerted force, the young man couldn't stand still and fell down on the stairs with a plop. Seeing this, the people on the stairs burst out laughing. "Brother, she's someone else's woman. How could you?" Seeing that her brother was ignoring her, the woman stomped her feet angrily and ordered, "Someone, help second young master up." 2 maids came down, helped the man up, and pulled him back to the top of the steps. The man wanted to struggle, but he found that he could pass the maids and see the miss standing behind the maids. At this moment, his eyes lit up with joy. He stared at Xiao Wanru's beautiful face and was amazed. Beautiful, really beautiful, really beautiful, a beauty. No matter how one looked at it, this kind of dazed expression was annoying. With one look, one could tell that he was a hedonistic son of a rich family in the capital. Whoever met this kind of playboy would be unlucky. If they were unlucky, their reputation might be ruined. Playboys like this all had a strong background. If they really did something disrespectful, the one who would suffer would be the women. There were even cases of women with outstanding looks being forced to become concubines after they spread the news. There were also cases of women who had a good status in the family, but because their reputation was ruined, they could only marry this hedonistic young master. There were also cases of women who could only marry this hedonistic young master. Even if there were no 2 situations above, no one was willing to be the beauty in the eyes of this kind of playboy. They talked about it everywhere and ruined their reputation. "You deserve to be beaten for being so rude." Xiao Wanru raised her eyes coldly and turned her eyes from the young man to the woman beside him, who seemed to be anxious. She was really an acquaintance. However, at this moment, she was staring at her second brother wholeheartedly and didn't see Xiao Wanru at the bottom of the stairs. "Yes, master." Yujie had wanted to beat such a playboy for a long time. Hearing Xiao Wanru's words, she immediately went up a few steps and slapped the face of the man, who was still looking at Xiao Wanru in a daze and seemed to be drooling. No one expected that a maid would suddenly rush up and slap him twice. Neither the man nor the woman, who was like the moon surrounded by stars, reacted in time and watched the man being slapped. "How dare you! Come on, catch her!" The man screamed in pain, reached out to point at Xiao Wanru and shouted. It seemed that he was robbing her by force. Two servants immediately flashed behind the young man fiercely. Judging from their familiarity with each other, it must not be the first time that they had done this kind of thing. Most of the guests in Butterfly Clothing Shop were womenfolk. At the sight of this situation, they stepped back slightly and sighed for Xiao Wanru. She was another beautiful woman with a short life. Although she wore good clothes, she might not necessarily be of power. How could a rich family compare with this kind of rich and powerful playboy? Infanta Yuan, if you don't stop your second brother, I'm afraid that he will be carried back later. Xiao Wanru said coldly and looked at the woman in the middle with cold eyes. Chu Yuanan, Infanta Yuan, the future Princess Zhou. With so many identities, it was enough to let people know that this Infanta Yuan had an extraordinary identity. Hearing that he was asked to go back on the bed, second young Master Chu was furious and shouted, "How dare you talk big? Well, I like such a beauty the most. Compared with that kind of delicate woman, this kind of beauty is..." At this point, he was interrupted by Yujie, who slapped him hard twice in the face. This time, it was even harder than before. After second young Master Chu fell to the ground, blood immediately flowed from the corner of his mouth. "How dare you!" Second young Master Chu cursed with anger and reached out to point at Yujie. Yujie slapped him again so fast that people couldn't believe that a maid could be so bold. She slapped him again and again, completely disregarding the person opposite her. "Princess Chen, you have gone too far." Infanta Yuan was also annoyed and said sternly. "The one in Infanta's mansion has gone too far. How can he slander a member of the royal family?" Xiao Wanru raised her head and walked up slowly with the help of Nanny Dong. When they reached the top of the stairs, she glanced coldly at second young Master Chu, who was so shocked that he couldn't even speak for a while. She steadied her footsteps and the corners of her lips curled up into a beautiful smile. "This must be second young Master Chu. I've heard Prince Chen mention it." Princess Chen. Second young Master Chu felt a chill in his heart. As the legitimate grandson of great elder princess, of course, he had seen Prince Chen. Not only had he seen him, but he had also suffered a loss when he was young, so that he had been following Prince Chen around in the palace after he grew up. Prince Chen was a black-hearted man. Although he was too sick to get up and looked like he was about to die, he was definitely cruel and merciless. He was not only cruel and merciless, but also a tattletale. When second young Master Chu was young, he had suffered a lot from Chu Luchen. At this time, seeing the expression on Xiao Wanru's face, he immediately panicked. When Chu Luchen smiled, he was also extremely handsome, absolutely like a noble and beautiful young master coming out of a painting. But when he changed his expression, he almost tormenting people to death. "Princess Chen, my second brother just accidentally bumped into you. You don't have to treat my second brother like this. Princess Chen is too arrogant and domineering." Infanta Yuan looked at Xiao Wanru coldly and said angrily, "As a descendant of great elder princess, why did Princess Chen go too far?" "I went too far," Xiao Wanru said coldly. She raised her watery eyes slightly, looked into Infanta Yuan's eyes unhurriedly, and said firmly, "In this case, let's go to the imperial palace to ask the Empress Dowager for an explanation, lest Infanta Yuan think that I went too far." "Your Highness, your words are so unreasonable. This child treated our princess like this. Can't we just let it go?" Yujie said angrily. If she hadn't reacted quickly just now, this person would have bumped into her princess. With this person's temperament, if he bumped into the princess, he would probably make trouble. At that time, the princess wouldn't be able to explain herself even if she was in the right. How dare a maid be so presumptuous? Princess Chen is really extraordinary. Infanta Yuan was so angry that she felt even more humiliated when she was reprimanded by a maid. Infanta Yuan, then, if you think I did something wrong, do you dare to go to the imperial palace with me to talk about it? Xiao Wanru said coldly. It's just a trifle. Forget it. Sister, it's not a big deal anyway. Why do you have to go to the imperial palace to make a scene? The second young master Chu was the first to give in. He pulled Infanta Yuan's hand and said in a low voice. He really didn't dare to go to the imperial palace. Every time he went to the imperial palace, he would be reprimanded by the Empress Dowager. Moreover, the one in front of him was Princess Chen. Although he secretly felt that it was a pity, he didn't dare to show it on his face. It was a pity that such a beautiful woman was actually married to a black-bellied invalid. In the future, she would be a widow. However, the future was the future. Maybe he still had a chance. He had to wait until Chu Luchen died in the future. It's better to leave some face for them to meet. It's not good for me to fall out with them now. Second brother, she bullied you so much. How could you let her go like this? Chu Yuanan pulled the corner of his sleeve angrily and said angrily. Little sister, forget it. It's our fault. Why is it our fault? It's obvious that you fell down accidentally and didn't mean to hit her. How could she ask her maid to slap you? Her grandmother is great elder princess, so is our grandmother. Infanta Yuan was so angry that she said with grievance and her eyes turned red. Little sister, don't cry. When we go back, we'll talk to Grandma and ask her to talk about it with the Empress Dowager. Although the second young master Chu was a jerk, he was good to his sister, so he hurriedly comforted her. Second brother. Well, it's all my fault. I'll buy you 10 sets of clothes. What do you think? The second young master Chu seemed to want to make peace. Xiao Wanru looked at the scene in front of her with cold eyes. Seeing this scene, even she wondered if she had bullied the brother and sister. Her long eyelashes fluttered a few times, and there was a deep look in her eyes. It was such a coincidence that she fell down when she came up. Xiao Wanru was very clear about the stairs here. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for her to rush up and fall down. Just now, she was downstairs, but the people upstairs could see her. Judging from Chu Yuanan's look, he should want to come down from the stairs. Even if everyone went up the stairs together, the people upstairs would always see her first. Moreover, there was a turning point here. Therefore, Chu Yuanan did it on purpose. Chapter 960. The current situation was very strange. The one who was hit seemed to be a bully and rude, while the one who hit the other seemed to be polite. Second young master Chu, since you hit the wrong person, you should apologize. A gentle voice came from the stairway. Everyone looked back and found that they knew each other. When Shichi, who was dressed in a navy blue robe, appeared in front of them with his hands clasped behind his back, followed by a servant holding a brocade box. Judging from the style of the brocade box, it should be a new style of clothes made of Butterfly Clothing Shop. They were surprised that when Shichi also came to Butterfly Clothing Shop. Her long eyelashes swept across her eyes, revealing a faint indifference. She looked at Infanta Yuan and then at Wen Shichi, and then slightly bowed sideways. Wen Shichi was the only one who knew that she was the owner of Butterfly Clothing Shop. At that time, it was Wen Shichi who helped her buy this shop. This shop only sold women's clothes. Although there were occasionally men in the shop, there should be no reason for Wen Shichi to appear here, so it was not a chance encounter. She glanced at the brocade box in the servant's hand, and her eyes became darker. Was it an impromptu idea or several people did it together? Third young master Wen, I didn't do it on purpose. I just tripped over something. Second young master Chu said unhappily. It was okay for him to give in front of the beauty, but if Wen Shichi also stepped on him and made him lose face in front of the beauty, he would be very unwilling. Whether you did it on purpose or not, it is true that you almost hit Princess Chen, right? Wen Shichi said lightly. I didn't do it on purpose. Second young master Chu refused to accept it. Third young master Wen, did you see my second brother being beaten? Infanta Yuan then said unhappily. She looked at Xiao Wanru and then Wen Shiqi with a frown and said, "Third young master Wen, why are you so partial to Princess Chen? How could she associate herself with Wen Shiqi again?" Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart, but didn't show it on her face. At this moment, she suddenly smiled like a spring flower, looking calm and gentle. Everyone was stunned for a moment. "Infanta Yuan then, did you deal with me again and again today because of Prince Chen and Prince Zhou?" Xiao Wanru said slowly with calm eyes after smiling. Infanta Yuan was shocked by her words, and her hand holding the handkerchief couldn't help trembling. Since Prince Zhou and Prince Chen were involved, it would be a big matter. "I didn't," she hurriedly explained. "When I went upstairs just now, Princess Yuan An's second brother fell down and almost hit me. I barely managed to avoid it, but Princess Yuan An said that I was taking advantage of my position to bully others. Now that third young master Wen is telling the truth, Princess Yuan An says that third young master Wen has other intentions. Infanta Yuan An, I want to ask Infanta Yuan's opinion. When did I offend you, or Prince Chen?" Xiao Wanru looked at the people in front of her coldly and tore apart the veil of affection between them mercilessly with her eyes. Although Infanta Yuan An had an extraordinary status, she was still Princess Chen, while Chu Luchen was still Princess Zhou who had not married into the Empress's family. Prince Zhou was the legitimate son of the Empress and had a noble status. But before the crown prince was appointed, he was just a little noble. Moreover, Chu Luchen was the legitimate son of the late emperor, and his status was higher than that of Chu Liuzhou. Xiao Wanru didn't need to show weakness and submit to Yuan An. Infanta Yuan An. She had met Infanta Yuan An several times. Except for the first time, Infanta Yuan An wanted to help Madame of Jiang and Xiao Yanru suppress her. After that, they got along well with each other. Of course, this harmony couldn't be taken seriously. However, since it couldn't be taken seriously, no one would tear it apart. You are talking nonsense," Infanta Yuan An said with her face changing dramatically and regret in her heart. She had always disliked Xiao Wanru. Just now, when she saw Xiao Wanru coming up, she sent someone to trip her second brother. Her second brother was a hooligan who couldn't move when he saw a beauty. No matter what nonsense he said at that time, everyone would only think that it was disgraceful to argue with a hooligan, and Xiao Wanru would lose face. After that, her second brother talked about Xiao Wanru everywhere, which was out of her control. Anyway, a beauty who was talked about by these wastrels couldn't have a good reputation. For this reason, Xiao Wanru's reputation would be tarnished. Infanta Yuan then, you should know whether I'm talking nonsense or not. I'm not very familiar with you in the past, and I don't think I've offended you. Now you keep talking about my reputation. In this case, I don't need to be polite. The reputation of Prince Chen's mansion can't be tarnished. Even in front of the Empress Dowager, I still say the same. Xiao Wanru turned her eyes, looked at Infanta Yuan An quietly, and said in a sharp tone. She meant that it didn't matter if she hit second young Master Chu. The brother and sister of the Chu family had evil intentions. What she hit was the face of Chu's mansion, Chu Yuanan, and second young Master Chu. I hit him. What else do you want, Infanta Yuan An? The last sentence was extremely domineering. She was clearly a delicate woman, but her exquisite and beautiful face carried a kind of cold and murderous aura. Her pair of beautiful eyes didn't have a trace of a smile. It was as if they were wrapped in a myriad of ice and snow. Moreover, it was an ice mountain with sharp edges and corners. It was so sharp that it didn't seem delicate at all. You. I want to go to the imperial palace to ask the empress to judge. Infanta Yuan An felt guilty at the moment. Looking around, she gritted her teeth and forced herself to say. Prince Zhou is the son of the empress, so he should ask the empress to judge. Infanta Yuan An, please. Xiao Wanru stepped back and made way for her. Okay, let's go to the imperial palace now. Infanta Yuan An just said that, but now she couldn't retreat anymore. She stamped her feet, turned to second young Master Chu beside her, and said, second brother, let's go. Little sister. Second young master Chu Xinghong, was a little flustered and pulled Infanta Yuan An's sleeve. Second brother. Infanta Yuan An said angrily. Little sister, you'd better not go. Chu Xinghong was really flustered. He really didn't dare to go to the imperial palace, because he would be scolded if he went to the imperial palace. He was aware of this. The invalid was not easy to bully. It had always been Chu Luchen who bullied others. They could never bully the invalid. Both the Empress Dowager and the Emperor were on the side of the invalid. Second brother, what are you afraid of? You have been beaten like this. We have to show the Emperor how Princess Chen treats people. Infanta Yuan An felt that her second brother was really useless. With the facts in front of her, she was really not afraid of Xiao Wanru. Infanta Yuan An, it's useless to talk. If you are timid, you don't have to go. Seeing that the two of them were still arguing, Xiao Wanru turned around and walked downstairs. On the way, she looked back and said with a cold smile. Her words were like adding oil to the fire. How could Infanta Yuan An bear it? She had an unusual identity and was the biological granddaughter of Great Elder Princess. In the past, she was very steady and decent among the noble ladies and was very respected in front of several noble ladies in the imperial palace. Now she was forced to such a point by Xiao Wanru. How could she bear it? Originally, she wanted Xiao Wanru to be weaker than her. If she succeeded in today's plan, Xiao Wanru would feel uncomfortable when she saw her in the future and unconsciously be weaker than her. In this way, she could be the legitimate wife of a prince. She was a girl and had little contact with Chu Luchen. Although granddaughters of Great Elder Princess like them entered the imperial palace from time to time, they might not have the chance to meet Prince Chen. Even if they met, although he looked as handsome as a painting and spoke gently, he was not close to them. Before they came to him, they would be stopped and then left indifferently. They didn't know what kind of person he was. In Infanta Yuan An's mind, Prince Chen was just a handsome young man who was as beautiful as a painting. Although he was ill and weak, he was a little indifferent. Although he looked gentle, he kept people at arm's length. With Infanta Yuan An's status and health, she could only watch him from afar. If she married such a man, she would be a widow sooner or later. As for Chu Xinghong, who was bullied by Chu Luchen, he certainly would not tell such a shameful thing to his sister. Infanta Yuan An had never thought that Chu Luchen was dangerous. She just thought that he was useless. However, this useless person was the legitimate son of the late emperor. For this reason, Infanta Yuan An thought that she should use Xiao Wanru's reputation to suppress Chu Luchen. Among the prince's consorts, of course, she was the most distinguished one. Among the princes, of course, only Prince Zhou was the future crown prince, who was far superior to the other princes. Infanta Yuan An, second young master Chu, Princess Chen has left. When Shiqi said coldly and then went downstairs. He didn't leave but wandered downstairs again. Obviously, he was not in a hurry to leave. Such a contemptuous attitude made Infanta Yuan An's face turn red with anger, and then green. She grabbed Chu Xinghong and dragged him down regardless of anything. When she arrived at the gate, Xiao Wanru had already gotten in the carriage. The coachman whipped the carriage and headed for the imperial palace. Now, even if Infanta Yuan An felt a little regretful, she could only follow them into the imperial palace. After she got in the carriage, it followed the carriage of Prince Chen's mansion to the gate of the imperial palace. When they arrived at the gate of the imperial palace, Xiao Wanru got out of the carriage first and entered the imperial palace. Yu Jie said something to a little eunuch who was guarding there, and the little eunuch answered and left. The palace sedan chair was waiting at the gate. They got in the sedan chair one after another and headed for the Empress's Fengyi Palace. Second young master Chu stayed at the gate of the imperial palace. As a man, he couldn't go directly to the Fengyi Palace without being summoned. The two palace sedan chairs entered the gate of the Fengyi Palace one after the other and stopped in front of the Danke Palace. After getting out of the palace sedan chair, Infanta Yuan and took a few quick steps and rushed to Xiao Wanru. She bowed deeply to the eunuch who was guarding the gate and said, "I'm here to see the Empress. Please help me." After saying that, her eyes turned red with tears at the corners of her eyes. It was obvious that she had cried just now. Did she have to ask the Empress to help her because she had been wronged? Infanta Yuan was the future princess of Prince Zhou's mansion. The eunuch who was guarding the gate did not dare to neglect her and hurriedly ran in to report. Chapter 961. Hearing that Infanta Yuan came in crying, the Empress froze for a moment. She was extremely satisfied with Infanta Yuan as her daughter-in-law. Not only for Ruiping Great Elder Princess, who was behind Infanta Yuan, but also for herself. Infanta Yuan's horoscope was extremely precious. Such a precious horoscope predicted her noble status in the future. In the past, Infanta Yuan was very dignified and decent, which was very good among the misses of aristocratic families. Her dignified and decent behavior was different from Xiao Yanru's. Xiao Yanru looked dignified and decent, unlike Infanta Yuan, who was fair and dignified and decent in dealing with things. How could such a dignified and decent Infanta Yuan be bullied? The Empress felt a little uncomfortable. Her son was the future crown prince and the future emperor, and Infanta Yuan was the future crown princess and the future empress. How could she complain to her in tears after being bullied? Shouldn't she directly beat the bully back? Was it Princess Chen who came with her? Thinking of Princess Chen's weak appearance, she didn't think that she was a strong one. Moreover, even if she was strong, how could Princess Chen bully her with her status? Princess Chen was not Prince Chen. Invite Infanta Yuan and Princess Chen in. The Empress said with a frown. The eunuch hurriedly left and soon led the two people in. As soon as they entered the door, Infanta Yuan quickly came over and bowed to the Empress. Then her eyes became redder and she said, "Greetings, Empress." "Your Highness," she said the last word in an aggrieved voice with a hint of crying. "Yuan, get up." The Empress raised her hands slightly, and a palace maid came over to help Infanta Yuan up and help her sit down. Xiao Wanru also knelt down to greet her. "Princess Chen, get up." The Empress said with a smile and glanced at Xiao Wanru's delicate face. She looked calm without any emotion. Although she looked a little younger than Infanta Yuan, the Empress agreed with her calmness. Only her son's daughter-in-law should have such a bearing. Infanta Yuan's performance today was really embarrassing. "Empress, please make a decision." Xiao Wanru didn't get up. She tilted the hand of the palace maid who was holding her and said with her long eyelashes slightly raised. "You." Infanta Yuan said angrily. Xiao Wanru spoke first, but she couldn't ignore her dignity at this time and interrupted Xiao Wanru's words. "But what happened?" The Empress's face darkened. "Your Highness, I met Infanta Yuan before." Xiao Wanru told her what had happened in an extremely calm manner. After that, she kowtowed to the Empress again, raised her head, and said, "Your Highness, if second young Master Chu bumped into me at that time, I wonder if my reputation would be ruined? It shouldn't be a big deal if he just bumped into Xiao Wanru." However, second young Master Chu was not stingy at all. Who knew if he would be tempted and hold Xiao Wanru in his arms? It was not impossible. Looking at Xiao Wanru's exquisite eyebrows and eyes, the Empress felt that it must be so. Chu Xinghong couldn't bear to see a beauty the most. If he bumped into such a beauty, he would definitely reach out to hold Xiao Wanru in his arms and might even do something more outrageous. Xiao Wanru's reputation would be mostly ruined if she was molested in public. Even though it was an accident, it brought shame to the royal family. The Empress could even ask Chu Luchen to divorce Xiao Wanru or demote her to a concubine based on this incident. Although the Empress didn't think it was possible for her to do so, she would really offend Rui, and Great Elder Princess and even Chu Luchen. It was said that Chu Luchen was very satisfied with Princess Chen. Of course, it was just a rumor. None of the descendants of the royal family was simple. The Empress didn't know whether it was true or not. If such a thing really happened, the Empress thought it was a good idea to use it to threaten Xiao Wanru. In the future, Xiao Wanru would not dare to be tough in front of her. It was actually a good thing to have such a handle on her. The problem was that it didn't work out. Not only did it fail, but it also came to her. If Infanta Yuan was just an ordinary young lady, she could protect her. However, Infanta Yuan had another identity, which was her son's future daughter-in-law. For this reason, she couldn't protect Infanta Yuan on the surface. It's just a bump. It's not a big deal. Get up and talk. The Empress said with a gentle smile and didn't take it seriously. Your Highness, Princess Chen beat my second brother and said something else to frame me. Infanta Yuan was anxious and also knelt down. The Empress was not very happy. No matter how she looked at it, it was obvious that Commandery Princess Yuan had bad intentions. It was best to keep the peace at this time, but Commandery Princess Yuan was still holding on to it. It was too much, and she did not see the big picture. The Empress didn't know that Xiao Wanru and Infanta Yuan had fallen out with each other just now. At this time, either Infanta Yuan won or Infanta Yuan would be suppressed. How could Infanta Yuan be willing to be suppressed? At this time, she couldn't feel guilty. Otherwise, all the gossip in the future would be about her. She couldn't give in. Infanta Yuan, then, tell me what I've said to frame you up and let the Empress hear it, okay? Xiao Wanru asked unhurriedly with her ethereal eyes and as elegant as water. You said it was about Prince Zhou and Prince Chen. Infanta Yuan had to say it now, since she was in trouble. The Empress's heart skipped a beat. What she hated most was her son's business, which was a big deal no matter how small it was. She couldn't let the Emperor dislike her son anymore. What's the matter between Prince Zhou and Prince Chen? Aren't they good brothers? Xiao Wanru pretended not to see the displeasure in the Empress's eyes and asked specially. Infanta Yuan was so angry that her face turned livid. When they were in Butterfly Clothing Shop, Xiao Wanru didn't say that. She implied that Prince Chen and Prince Zhou didn't get along well with each other and that she dealt with Prince Chen for Prince Zhou. Princess Chen, you said that I dealt with Prince Chen's mansion for Prince Zhou. Infanta Yuan said angrily. After she finished speaking, her face changed dramatically and she pressed her trembling fingers on the ground. She was so angry that she lost her usual composure and even said such words. How could she say such words casually? As expected, the Empress put the teacup in her hand heavily on the table and said, Infanta Yuan, what do you mean? Prince Zhou and Prince Chen are brothers and have always been on good terms. What are you talking about? Empress, you're right. I also think that Prince Zhou and Prince Chen have a good relationship. I don't understand Infanta Yuan's intention. Why does she want to deal with me like this and ruin my reputation? If I ruin my reputation, what good will it do to her? Or is it that Infanta Yuan dealt with Prince Chen's mansion in the first place? Xiao Wanru said calmly. Infanta Yuan was so angry that she wanted to bite Xiao Wanru a few times. It sounded like she was making trouble rudely and hurting people. However, these things had nothing to do with Prince Zhou's mansion. After all, she had not married into Prince Zhou's mansion and was not the real Princess Zhou yet. Prince Zhou was not involved in anything. The Empress liked to hear this. She hated to get her son involved in this kind of thing the most. She nodded at once, turned to look at Infanta Yuan and said, What happened? Why did your second brother fall down? Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. The Empress was really biased. She said this in order to find an excuse for Infanta Yuan and wanted to get rid of this matter with an accident. How could there be such an easy thing in the world? In the past, she didn't fight for anything, but it didn't mean that she would endure being bullied. If she could endure it this time, others would go too far next time. Only when others reached out to bully her would she directly cut off their hands. In this way, no one dared to defile her casually in the future. Your Highness, I really don't know why this happened. I didn't care about it at that time. I didn't expect that my second brother couldn't stand steadily. Infanta Yuan was a smart person. Although she wanted to bite Xiao Wanru to death, she hurriedly caught the rope given by the empress at this time to save herself. Infanta Yuan, then, you don't care about it. Even so, it is true that your brother offended me, right? I am Princess Chen now. Shouldn't he be punished for offending me? Xiao Wanru said with deep eyes. She didn't argue about how it happened, nor did she ask whether it was an accident at that time. She just firmly grasped this point. This was what made Infanta Yuan feel wronged the most. Hearing Xiao Wanru's words, she immediately wiped her tears with a handkerchief and said, "Your Highness, my brother was really just an accident." When Princess Chen came over, she asked someone to beat my brother and humiliated him in front of so many people. Please uphold justice for me. My brother was just careless. Infanta Yuan's words were very good. She put all the blame on an accident. She didn't believe that Xiao Wanru could defeat her because of an accident. With the Empress's help, Xiao Wanru's domineering reputation could be confirmed. She was so domineering as soon as she married into Prince Chen's mansion. It could be seen that she was not a good person. As a daughter-in-law of the royal family, she should be decent and sensible. She should do things with reason and evidence. How could she condemn someone based on an accident? Was he careless? Xiao Wanru suddenly reached out. Infanta Yuan was startled and hurriedly stepped back, thinking that Xiao Wanru was going to slap her. Xiao Wanru's hand slid past her cheek, and her sharp nails scratched her pink and tender face. Immediately, a scratch appeared on her porcelain white face, which was a faint bloodstain. Everyone was shocked. Princess Chen scratched Infanta Yuan's face in front of the Empress. "Your Highness." Infanta Yuan, who came to her senses, covered her face and cried in grief and indignation. However, she was relieved in her heart. Xiao Wanru dared to do such a thing in front of the Empress. She was doomed. With such a scene, no matter how the Empress punished her, she would have a reason. "How dare you!" The Empress also came to her senses at this time. She slapped the table heavily with her face turning pale with anger. No woman had ever dared to be so presumptuous in front of her. Chapter 962. Your Majesty, I just wanted to brush away Infanta Yuan's falling hair. It was Infanta Yuan who turned her head in a panic and hit my fingertips. Xiao Wanru answered unhurriedly. You. Infanta Yuan was so angry that she was seething with anger. Infanta Yuan, why are you panicking? Did I slap you in front of the Empress? Xiao Wanru couldn't help laughing and said, "It was completely an accident, and it was Infanta Yuan who took the initiative to hit me." Your Majesty, are you going to punish me for such an accident? Xiao Wanru turned to the Empress and said softly. The Empress's face was as dark as water. She was so angry that she wanted to grab the cup in her hand and throw it at Xiao Wanru, but she had to be rational. If what happened before was an accident, what happened at the moment was indeed an accident. She had been sure that Infanta Yuan didn't do it on purpose. At the moment, she couldn't say that Xiao Wanru did it on purpose. It was Infanta Yuan who turned her head, so she was hit in the face. Yuan was not a useful person. She didn't know whether she could help her son in the future or drag him down. If she had known it earlier, she would have picked a better one at that time. Maybe there would be a better match for her son. Infanta Yuan's behavior just now had made the Empress angry. With Infanta Yuan's behavior, the Empress couldn't say that she did it on purpose now. It became quiet in the hall. The Empress's cold eyes fell on Xiao Wanru's face with a hint of anger. Infanta Yuan couldn't help grabbing the corner of her dress tightly and biting her lip with panic and confusion in her heart. It was obviously not like that, but she couldn't find a reason to prove it. Like the Empress, with the previous accident, the current accident could also be explained, unless what happened before was also on purpose. After a long while, the Empress said slowly, "Since it was an accident, you'd better not hurt the harmony. You two should love each other in the future. I will do as you say, Your Majesty. Xiao Wanru said with a slight smile and agreed very gently. A palace maid came over to help her stand up and sit aside. With the scene just now, the Empress would not really think that Xiao Wanru was gentle. Commandery Princess Yuan and didn't want to accept it. The Empress's action of suppressing both of them meant that Commandery Princess Yuan and had ulterior motives. In other words, her brother was beaten for nothing. Since they had fought for nothing, they were definitely at fault. Your Highness. This official's second brother has been wronged. Infanta Yuan and did not get up. She looked at the Empress with tears in her eyes filled with hope. It was the first time for her to fight against Xiao Wanru, so she couldn't lose. Princess Yuan, then, do you mean that what your good second brother did was right, and what he said was also right? At that time, third young master Wen was also there. If Her Majesty wants to know what second young master Chu said and how much he belittled Prince Chen's mansion, you can ask third young master Wen of the Prime Minister to enter the palace to investigate. Xiao Wanru knew that Infanta Yuan and would not admit it so easily, so she smiled and continued her words. She even belittled Prince Chen's mansion. The Empress wanted to slap Commandery Princess Yuan Pen. That half-dead invalid was the favorite of the Emperor and Empress Dowager. How could she be belittled like that? If it was only about Xiao Wanru, it would be fine. But if it was about Chu Luchen, not to mention the Empress Dowager, even the Emperor would reprimand her. What a precious son. Could a daughter-in-law really help his son? Well, that's it. Second young Master Chu should be punished for talking nonsense. The Empress said. She knew clearly that she couldn't be partial at this time. Your Highness, that was my second brother. Infanta Yuan and didn't believe that the Empress would say that. She said sadly with tears falling down her cheeks. Her second brother would be Prince Zhou's brother-in-law in the future. If he was humiliated, Prince Zhou would lose face. Infanta Yuan and reminded the Empress that Prince Zhou was involved in this matter. How dare you? Even if a prince breaks the law, he will also be punished. The Empress's face darkened and she said sternly. She didn't like such an insensible daughter-in-law. At first glance, she could tell that it was not a good thing. Her son must be involved. Infanta Yuan and was really useless and didn't have the bearing of a future. She seemed to be like those S of the Emperor when they were wronged and came to her to complain to her. Every time at this time, the Empress looked at them with a condescending attitude. Even S were concubines, and as long as they were concubines, they could only cry like this. However, she chose Infanta Yuan and for her son, the future crown princess and the Empress. How could she lose her bearing and be inferior to Princess Chen? In terms of appearance, Prince Consort Chen looked younger and gentler. Now, she spoke with reason and was graceful. She looked like a princess while Princess Yuan and looked like a concubine. Comparing the two, it was obvious who was superior. How could the Empress be happy? Your Highness, bad news, bad news. A eunuch rushed in, sweating profusely. What's the matter? The Empress said unhappily. Her Fengyi Palace should be in good order. Why did they make a fuss? Could something serious happen? Prince Chen broke second young Master Chu's hand. The eunuch wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said. What? Infanta Yuan and shook her body and almost fainted. What happened? The Empress was stunned for a moment and asked anxiously. She had a headache because this matter couldn't be a small matter now. Prince Chen came from Prince Chen's mansion and met second young Master Chu at the gate of the palace. Without saying anything, he asked someone to break second young Master Chu's hand and said that he would avenge Princess Chen. The eunuch said. How did Prince Chen know about this? The Empress looked back at Xiao Wanru anxiously. When I entered the palace, I sent someone to tell His Highness. His Highness also knew that I went to pick clothes and jewelry. Originally, he wanted to accompany me there, but he asked me to go alone after something happened. He said that he would inform His Highness when he came back. Xiao Wanru said in an orderly manner. His expression was natural, without the slightest hint of panic, as if what he had said was the truth. You, how can you be so excessive? Royal Princess Yuan was filled with grief and indignation. Her own thoughts had caused her second brother to break his hand. This was her biological second brother. Even though he hadn't matured much, he had treated her extremely well. Princess Yuan is wrong. I'm not being unreasonable. I just told His Highness about it. I didn't expect that His Highness would meet second young Master Chu. Maybe it was second young Master Chu who provoked His Highness. Not only am I angry, but His Highness is also very angry. Xiao Wanru, his expression was very helpless. In other words, Chu Xinghong had beaten himself up and it had nothing to do with others. Infanta Yuan was so angry that she almost gnashed her teeth into pieces. If it weren't for the Empress, she would almost pounce on Xiao Wanru and scratch her hateful face. Does the Emperor know about this? The Empress ignored them and continued to ask. Someone has already reported it to the Emperor and the Empress Dowager. The eunuch reported. So the Emperor and the Empress Dowager had already known about it. The Empress took a deep breath, suppressed the surging anger in her heart, stood up, and said, "Let's go to the Empress Dowager's place with me and let the Empress Dowager judge this matter." She couldn't suppress this matter now, and she couldn't. It was related to her son, so she had to let the Empress Dowager deal with it in order to show her fairness and propriety. She was the Empress and the Empress of a country. She couldn't be partial to her son, so that the Emperor and the Empress Dowager could trust her more. Yes. Xiao Wanru said softly. Infanta Yuan stood up with the help of a palace maid, gritted her teeth, and followed the Empress. They went to the Empress Dowager's Palace of Benevolent Peace together. After arriving at the Palace of Benevolent Peace and having someone report it to the Empress Dowager, the Empress walked in with Infanta Yuan and Xiao Wanru. The Empress Dowager was sitting on a large chair. Seeing them come in, she just raised her eyes and looked unhappy. After the Empress took her seat, Xiao Wanru and Infanta Yuan knelt in front of the Empress Dowager. No palace maid came to help them, which meant that the Empress Dowager did not exempt them from the etiquette. Empress, what happened? The Empress Dowager ignored the two kneeling people and asked the Empress slowly. In fact, it was just an accident. Second young Master Chu fell down the stairs and almost hit Princess Chen, but he didn't really offend Princess Chen. Princess Chen asked a maid to slap second young Master Chu several times. Infanta Yuan and Princess Chen quarreled and went to the Imperial Palace together to find me. I didn't expect that Prince Chen would hit second young Master Chu at the gate of the Imperial Palace. The Empress sighed helplessly and told her what had happened in a simple manner. Xiao Wanru lowered her eyes slightly, but there was coldness in her eyes. She was the one who heard the Empress's words wrongly. The Empress's words were very interesting. She and Chu Luchen were unreasonable and hit people one after another. Second young Master Chu Xinghong, although he didn't make any progress, is the lineal grandson of Ruiping Great Elder Princess after all. He was hit by Princess Chen and Prince Chen one after another, and now his arm was broken. It's really not good. After telling the cause and effect, the Empress frowned slightly and said, "Princess Chen, is it true?" The Empress Dowager turned to Xiao Wanru and asked in a deep voice. Reporting to the Empress Dowager, the matter was indeed like this. Grandson's daughter-in-law was frightened and thought that someone was deliberately ruining grandson's reputation in order to harm His Highness, so I ordered the maid to hit second young Master Chu, regardless of whether second young Master Chu was intentional or not. It was a fact that he had collided with grandson's daughter-in-law. If he had really collided with me, grandson's daughter-in-law would have had to die as an apology. Xiao Wanru didn't refute the Empress's words and continued very calmly. She lowered her eyes slightly and looked respectful, but she didn't look weak. At this moment, she wouldn't be weak, and she couldn't hold Chu Luchen back. It was obvious which was more important, to break his arm or to kill him. Chapter 963. My second brother didn't really bump into you. Infanta Yuan said anxiously. If he bumped into me, it would be too late. Xiao Wanru refused to give in. It's impossible for him to bump into me with the help of the servant girl. Yu Jie is very strong. An ordinary servant girl would not be able to resist her. You're determined to kill my second brother. Infanta Yuan was at a disadvantage. Looking at Xiao Wanru, who was calm, she panicked and kowtowed to the Empress Dowager twice with tears falling down her cheeks. Your Highness, please save my brother. He really didn't do it on purpose. If he didn't do it on purpose, he bumped into my princess. If he did it on purpose, was he trying to murder me? A cold voice came from the door. Chu Luchen walked into the hall slowly. Although he still had a smile on his face, his smile was cold and dangerous. He narrowed his long eyes slightly and looked at Infanta Yuan coldly. Infanta Yuan shrank unconsciously and lowered her head involuntarily. Was he really the invalid Prince Chen? Greetings, Imperial Grandmother and Empress. Chu Luchen came in and bowed to them first. Don't be so polite. Tell me what happened. The Empress Dowager waved her hand and said. Chu Luchen strode to the chair and sat down. Imperial Grandmother, what can happen? He just bullied my princess. Chu is not stingy. In the past, he talked about the daughter of the master's family, the wife of the West's family, and my princess with other playboys. Others can't talk about it casually. His words were very casual and carried an indifferent coldness, causing the temperature in the hall to drop by a few degrees. Of course, the Empress Dowager knew that her grandson was really angry. She looked at Xiao Wanru's delicate little face and found that she was indeed a stunning beauty. If her face was seen by playboys, they would definitely talk about it. The dignity of the royal family couldn't tolerate any blemish, so was the daughter-in-law of the royal family. Not everyone could talk about it. Infanta Yuan wanted to argue back, but seeing the Empress Dowager's look at her, she had to suppress her grievance and gnash her teeth in hatred. She understood very well what the Empress meant. She wanted her to endure it, but she really couldn't. Imperial Grandmother, no matter what happened today, Chu is sorry to me. If I don't teach him a lesson, he will think that he can trample on me as he pleases. Chu Luchen continued. Where's Chu? The Empress Dowager sighed secretly and said to calm things down. No matter what Chu Xinghong did wrong, he was the grandson of Ruiping Great Elder Princess. I've asked the eunuch at the door to send it to Great Elder Princess's mansion. Chu Luchen said lightly. Alright, this matter has already become like this. Chu didn't get anything good, so he won't say anything in the future. Empress Dowager said. Princess Yuanan took the initiative to move. She really couldn't accept it. Prince Chen and his wife didn't suffer any loss, but her second brother's arm was injured. What did she mean by saying that she would spare her second brother? That's it. Infanta Yuan was shocked and hurriedly covered her mouth. Then she found that it was Prince Chen who said those words. She was so angry that she trembled secretly. It's already like this. Is he still unwilling to give up? What do you think, Prince Chen? Ruiping Great Elder Princess is also a royal princess and has always been dignified, the Empress said. Chu Liuchen's expression remained unchanged, and his eyes fell on Infanta Yuan. Chu might be an accident, but this one shouldn't be an accident, right? Being stared at by him, Infanta Yuan felt as if she was being stared at by a poisonous snake. Being stared at, she became nervous and knelt there stiffly, not daring to move. Your Majesty, I've always been on good terms with my second brother. Why does this one who hasn't married my second brother has already fallen out with my princess? If they really become sisters-in-law in the future, the relationship between me and my second brother will be bad. Chu Luchen raised his eyebrows and said disdainfully, it's better not to marry her than to make the royal brothers fall out with each other. His words were extremely excessive. No matter what, Chu Yuanan was Prince Zhou's fiancé. The imperial decree had been issued, but he, as Prince Zhou's brother, disliked his elder brother's woman. Xiao Yuanan was so angry that she bit the corner of her mouth and suppressed the bloody smell in her chest. She would not let go of Chu Luchen, the invalid, or Xiao Wanru, who took advantage of others to intimidate others. She would like to see if Xiao Wanru still dared to be so arrogant after the invalid died. Prince Chen, this is the Emperor's order. The Empress's face also darkened. Chu Liuchen's words not only didn't give Chu Yuanan face, but also made her lose face. Her son didn't marry a daughter-in-law to please Chu Luchen. Why should the couple be satisfied? If they were not satisfied, it meant that the relationship between the sisters-in-law was not harmonious. Why didn't he divorce Xiao Wanru for the sake of the harmony between the two brothers? In fact, my uncle's order can be changed. The harmony between the royal family is always the priority. Chu Luchen said lazily. The emperor's words carry weight. The empress's face became more and more unpleasant. Of course my uncle's words carry weight. Now I haven't married anyone yet, have I? I haven't married anyone yet, but I've made trouble in the house. Chu Luchen said slowly, which seemed to make some sense. Infanta Yuan knelt there and only felt that her head was rising. How could Chu Luchen be so arrogant? How could he say such words in front of the Empress? He didn't take the Empress seriously at all. However, the more he did this, the more she didn't dare to move, and the more she felt that Chu Liuchen's eyes fell on her were cold. She clearly knew that if she refuted at this time, she wouldn't be able to bear the result. She had to bear it even if she couldn't. Xiao Wanru was also listening to Chu Liuchen's words. She also lowered her head with a calm face, but there was a trace of a soft smile at the bottom of her eyes. This feeling was really good. She didn't need to say anything and just needed to listen quietly. It was really different to have someone to protect her, especially such a strong and domineering protection. She believed that after this time, no matter who wanted to deal with her, they would have to weigh their own strength. If they really provoked Chu Luchen, they would not be able to bear it. Chu Luchen even went against the Empress for her, so how could his heart not be soft? He was protecting her unconditionally. She bit her lip and inexplicably felt like crying again. Since she was reborn, she would only feel soft when she was in front of Chu Luchen. She would also cry and make trouble. She was a real girl who didn't have to bear too many responsibilities. Well, Chen, let's forget about it. The Empress Dowager finally said. Imperial Grandmother. Chu Luchen said reluctantly. Well, that's it. Get up. The Empress Dowager would not allow him to really make trouble. After glaring at him, she ordered the palace servants to help Xiao Wanru and Infanta Yuan up and sit on both sides. Xiao Wanru happened to be sitting next to Chu Luchen. Chu Luchen reached out to take Xiao Wanru's hand and said generously, Imperial Grandmother, that's all. I'll go back now. My princess feels very wronged. Xiao Wanru blushed. She wanted to get rid of his hand. How could he hold her hand in front of so many people? However, Chu Luchen held her hand tightly. She was unable to get rid of it, but she didn't want to move too much, so she could only let him pull her to stand up. Okay, go back and have a rest first. Be careful of your health. Seeing that he finally stopped making trouble, the Empress Dowager breathed a sigh of relief and told him with a smile. Imperial Grandmother, don't worry. I will be fine. It's not easy for me to marry a princess. I can't let her be a widow. Chu Luchen said with a little complacency, as if he was happy to marry a daughter-in-law. Xiao Wanru's face turned red. This was too improper. The handsome young man who looked like he walked out of an ink landscape painting in the past was indeed a fake. If you continue to talk nonsense, don't leave. Stay and copy Buddhist scriptures for me to calm down. The Empress Dowager was so annoyed by him that she reached out and patted him. The Empress Dowager didn't like to hear this kind of words. If someone else said it, she would definitely be severely punished. Now it was Chu Luchen who said it, so she couldn't do anything about it. Okay, I'll leave now. I'll come to see Imperial Grandmother tomorrow. Chu Luchen said with a smile as if he didn't take it seriously. If it weren't for what had happened before, Infanta Yuan would think that he was really gentle and handsome. Go. The Empress Dowager said. Chu Luqian took Xiao Wanru's hand and bowed to the Empress again. He was very polite, as if he hadn't offended the Empress before. The Empress smiled stiffly. She had wanted to say something polite, but found that she couldn't say a word when the words were on the tip of her tongue. In the end, she could only force a smile and wave her hand like the Empress Dowager. Watching them leave, her eyes were dark and cold. As expected, a man who had never seen a woman regarded her as a treasure after marrying a passable woman. However, this was also good. If there were more good women sent to him in the future, Prince Chen's mansion would be in a mess. It would be better to kill Chu Luqian directly. Mother, I'm afraid that Ruiping Great Elder Princess will enter the imperial palace later. The Empress Dowager took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in her heart. She reminded the Empress Dowager softly that this matter was not over yet. Let the Empress deal with this matter. I'm not in good health, so I won't see Great Elder Princess. The Empress Dowager frowned and pushed this matter to the Empress. If Ruiping Great Elder Princess entered the imperial palace, she would definitely come to complain tearfully. But what could she do? She couldn't really punish Chen. The two people of the Chu family were also disappointing. How could they be so stupid to clash with Xiao Wanru? The Empress Dowager had experienced a lot of tricks in the imperial palace when she was young, so how could she really think that this was an accident? Her eyes fell on Infanta Yuan, and there was a little displeasure in them. This granddaughter-in-law was probably really disobedient. Before she married into the Empress Dowager's mansion, Chen had already disliked Prince Zhou. Both of them were her grandsons. Although they were a little partial, the Empress Dowager thought that Infanta Yuan was the worst. As for Xiao Wanru, the Empress Dowager regarded Chu Luqian as a treasure. What could she do? Wasn't it Infanta Yuan who made trouble? Empress, when Great Elder Princess comes, tell her to take good care of her granddaughter. She is going to get married soon, so she should embroider more dowries. The Empress Dowager's face became cold. Her words were almost reprimanding. Infanta Yuan's face turned red, and tears fell down one after another, but she didn't dare to defend herself. Chapter 964. Infanta Yuan followed Ruiping Great Elder Princess out of the imperial palace. When she got on the carriage, she couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She covered her mouth with a handkerchief and burst into tears. Ruiping Great Elder Princess looked at her coldly with disappointment in her eyes. Grandma, why? Why did this happen? Infanta Yuan raised her head and looked at Ruiping Great Elder Princess with her red and swollen eyes full of resentment. She is Prince Chen's consort, and I am also Prince Zhou's consort. Besides, I am the consort of the lineal princess. Why does she have to step over me? Because she can be protected by Prince Chen, but Prince Zhou didn't show up. Looking at her granddaughter's aggrieved look, Ruiping Great Elder Princess sighed, and the coldness on her face faded. Her granddaughter was smart, and she used to be excellent. Whether it was her reputation outside or her conduct, she had made a mistake this time. A woman's dignity depends on how much she can get a man's attention. Infanta Yuan said discontentedly, Xiao Wanru is married, so it's normal for Prince Chen to protect her. However, I haven't married yet. Even if Prince Zhou wants to protect me, he has no reason. You also know that he has no reason. Then why are you still making a scene? What you're doing is unjustifiable and unjustifiable. Ruiping Great Elder Princess reached out and pointed hard on Infanta Yuan's forehead with disappointment. Grandma, I happened to meet her and suddenly thought of it. Infanta Yuan said with a guilty conscience and bit her lip. It was really an accident at that time. She didn't think so before she saw Xiao Wanru. She had been secretly comparing herself with Xiao Wanru and always felt that she was the one who could be the empress of the world. In order to achieve this position, she had been generous and decent in everything she did. However, when she faced Xiao Wanru, she felt jealous and resentful. Xiao Wanru was not the only one. Xiao Yanru used to be there, but now there was only Xiao Wanru. Although Prince Zhou's gaze was obscure, she could see something unusual. She had hidden this concern in her heart and hadn't been noticed by others. When she saw Xiao Wanru that day, she suddenly wanted to humiliate her, so she asked someone to trip her second brother and push Chu Xinghong out. All of a sudden. You put your second brother in danger like this? How could others humiliate Prince Chen at will? You can't, and neither can Prince Zhou. Ruiping Great Elder Princess was furious when she thought of this. Although her second grandson was disappointing, he was still her legitimate grandson with a noble status. Prince Chen broke his arm at the gate of the palace, which was equivalent to a slap in the face of Ruiping Great Elder Princess's mansion, and she had to accept it. Why can't even Prince Zhou? He was just a small patient. Could it be that there were other reasons behind it? The late emperor died a long time ago. He is the only prince who survived because of the emperor's kindness. Otherwise, he would not have been able to live. Princess Yuan became more and more dissatisfied. Prince Zhou was the most legitimate prince among the princes. Chu Luqian was a legitimate prince, except that he was not the eldest son. Empress Dowager dotes on him and His Majesty also dotes on him. That is enough. Ruiping Great Elder Princess said. His Majesty just pretends to dote on him. Does His Majesty really dote on him? His Majesty will let him go only because he looks like he is about to die. Princess Yuan was scared by Chu Luqian just now. At this time, she no longer hid her anger and said with a sneer, who knows when he will die? His Majesty doesn't need to deal with him. He won't live long anyway. Her mouth was tightly covered by Ruiping Great Elder Princess. Her face was pale, and she lowered her voice and scolded her sternly, shut up. How can you say such things? Princess Yuan pushed Ruiping Great Elder Princess's hand and shook her head, indicating that she would not say such things. Ruiping Great Elder Princess relaxed her hand and still looked nervous. Fortunately, they were in the carriage. In order to make it convenient for them to talk, there were only the grandmother and the granddaughter in the carriage, so they were not afraid that someone would hear them. Grandma, is it possible that Prince Chen really? Princess Yuan lowered her voice and said. Don't talk nonsense. Ruiping Great Elder Princess shook her hand and warned her with a cold look, this kind of thing can't be said casually. Even if you are Princess Zhou in the future, you should avoid this kind of thing. Remember that Prince Chen is most favored by the Empress Dowager. You should think of him in everything. If someone meets Prince Chen, the Empress Dowager will not give face to anyone. Even His Majesty is behind Prince Chen. Grandma, do I have to salute Xiao Wanru when I see her in the future? Princess Yuan said unhappily. She was Princess Zhou in the future. Even if you don't salute her, you have to live a good life with her. Forget what happened today. Don't talk about avenging your second brother. If you really want to avenge him, your second brother should hate you the most. Ruiping Great Elder Princess said with hatred. Thinking of her second grandson who was dragged into this matter, she warned with a livid face, Yuan, you have to remember that you don't drag the whole Great Elder Princess's mansion into the whirlpool of fighting for the throne by marrying into Princess Zhou's mansion. Prince Zhou's mansion can support Great Elder Princess, but it can't hurt Great Elder Princess's mansion. Otherwise, I'd rather you not marry Prince Zhou. The more satisfied she was with this granddaughter in the past, the more disappointed she was now. Before she married Prince Zhou, she had met Princess Chen. Grandma, is my second brother, all right? Princess Yuan said guiltily. Speaking of this, Chu Xinghong was really innocent. I'm afraid his hand can't recover. Even if it recovers in the future, it will be damaged. Ruiping Great Elder Princess frowned and said angrily. It's too much. Second brother is really innocent. He didn't do it on purpose. He didn't do it on purpose, but you did. Everyone can see that. Don't think that they will admit it just because you didn't admit it just now. Prince Chen is not a person who will suffer losses. In the past, Prince Zhou also suffered a lot from him, let alone you, Ruiping Great Elder Princess said coldly. Her eyes were full of anger. Although she knew that Prince Chen could not be offended, how could Ruiping Great Elder Princess not hate Prince Chen who humiliated her lineal grandson like this? Like Princess Yuanfen, she was also annoyed with Chu Luchen. Of course, she hated Xiao Wanru the most. If it weren't for Xiao Wanru, her lineal grandson wouldn't have had such an accident. After this matter spread, what would others say about her in secret and what would they think of her Great Elder Princess's mansion? Thinking of this, Ruiping Great Elder Princess felt depressed. Grandma, don't worry. I will be good in the future. Even if I don't like her, I won't show it and I will get along with her. Seeing her grandma's look, Princess Yuan hurriedly comforted her. It's good that you can think so. Ruiping Great Elder Princess sighed. Although she comforted her granddaughter and repeatedly warned Xiao Wanru not to be trifled with, she also disapproved of Xiao Wanru in her heart. Compared with her own granddaughter, Ruiping Great Elder Princess's granddaughter was of course nobler. Even if it was the same after marrying a prince, Prince Zhou had a justifiable reason. He was just an invalid. What else could he do? But now it was not the time to offend Prince Chen's mansion. As long as the invalid was still here, they couldn't go too far with Princess Chen, which could be seen from Prince Chen's protective look today. She glanced at her granddaughter with a little helplessness. Prince Zhou didn't even show up today, which was really not a good thing. Even if Prince Zhou were to step forward in this matter, it would be somewhat unjustifiable. However, even if she didn't say anything, as long as Prince Zhou appeared in the Palace of Compassionate and Peaceful, it would be a silent support for Yuanfen. However, Prince Zhou was nowhere to be seen, and Prince Chen even showed up in person to attack Yuanfen. It was clear at a glance who was superior and who was inferior. There were many smart people in the Imperial Palace. At the sight of this situation, they knew the status of the two princesses in the eyes of the two princes. Therefore, when people in the imperial harem saw Princess Chen, they should show more respect to her than to Princess Zhou. Her granddaughter's move not only failed to do anything to Xiao Wanru, but also made her lose face in front of everyone in the imperial palace. What she said before was right. A woman's dignity depended on her man. If her man didn't support her, it was useless for a woman to be strong. Prince Chen supported Princess Chen, while Prince Zhou ignored him. It was obvious who was superior. Don't go out of the mansion these days. When you are free, embroider more dowry. Before you become Princess Zhou, it is not good to travel more often, and it will make Empress Dowager and Empress unhappy. As a daughter-in-law of the royal family, you should sit still and be stable. Ruiping Great Elder Princess reminded her. Grandma, I know. I won't do it in the future. I originally went to buy some good clothes today. I said that the embroidery and clothes in this shop are good. I want to choose some, so I asked my second brother to accompany me. Infanta Yuan wiped her tears and nodded obediently. Seeing that her granddaughter was quite obedient, Ruiping Great Elder Princess looked better and gave her a few more instructions. The carriage arrived at Ruiping Great Elder Princess's mansion. After everyone got off the carriage, Ruiping Great Elder Princess rushed to see her grandson first. Infanta Yuan got off the carriage, stood at the gate for a while, and then waved her hand to call a servant girl. After saying a few words in a low voice, she followed Ruiping Great Elder Princess into the mansion. She couldn't bear it, but she wouldn't be as reckless as she was today. Since she, the future Princess Zhou, couldn't do it, what about another princess? She heard that the future Princess Zhou had a good relationship with Xiao Wanru. After Xiao Wanru followed Chu Luchen back to the mansion, she went back to her courtyard, and Chu Luchen also came in. After staying inside, Xiao Wanru sat down and took a sip of tea. Then she frowned and put down the teacup in her hand. She raised her watery eyes and said seriously, "Your Highness, did I cause you trouble?" Ruiping Great Elder Princess was not a person to be trifled with. In the last life, even though Prince Zhou was defeated and died after plotting a rebellion, Infanta Yuan still lived a good life and still had the dignity of a princess and an infanta. Ruiping Great Elder Princess's mansion must have contributed a lot. However, in that case, Great Elder Princess's mansion was not implicated, which meant that Ruiping Great Elder Princess's mansion was extraordinary. Let me do it. I'm not afraid of it. Chu Luqin said lazily. You came here as soon as you heard the news from me? Xiao Wanru said in surprise, didn't you ask clearly before you took action? I heard that he broke someone's arm at the gate of the palace without saying anything. Chapter 965. Ask what? Zhuozhuo, don't worry. I don't dare to say anything. Chu Luqin said with a smile and a gentle voice. He didn't dare to say anything because he had broken his arm before he said anything. This kind of rude and even bloody defense made Xiao Wanru feel sad. With a faint sweetness, she reached out to hold Chu Luqin's hand and said, won't Ruiping Great Elder Princess's mansion say anything? What can they say? If they really say that her grandson is fine, her granddaughter will be in trouble. Chu Luqin was very satisfied that Xiao Wanru took the initiative to reach out to him. He reached out to hold Xiao Wanru's hand and said with a soft look in his eyes, a Princess Zhou is much better than a useless grandson. Xiao Wanru understood the meaning of his words. A Princess Zhou might be the empress in the future. As long as Infanta Yuan entered the East Palace, Ruiping Great Elder Princess's mansion would be the queen's family, and even the future crown prince could be a descendant of Infanta Yuan. In this way, at least Great Elder Princess's mansion could enjoy glory and wealth for decades. This was also the most important reason why Great Elder Princess thought highly of Infanta Yuan. Infanta Yuan must have come up with this idea on the spur of the moment. Xiao Wanru said with her watery eyes flickering. She went to Butterfly Clothing Shop on the spur of the moment. You overestimate yourself. Chu Luqin said coldly. She must bear a grudge against me. Although she was not affectionate to me before, she didn't seem to hate me. Xiao Wanru said in a dilemma. Don't worry. Chu Luqin said indifferently. If Ruiping Great Elder Princess deals with you because of this. Xiao Wanru said uneasily. She was worried about Chu Luqin. Don't worry. Chu Luqin obviously didn't want to talk about Ruiping Great Elder Princess's mansion anymore. He shook their hands and said, I heard that when Shiqi is also here today. Yes, he happened to come down. But why did he come to Butterfly Clothing Shop? Xiao Wanru nodded. She also found it strange. She had thought that when Shiqi was with Infanta Yuan, but now she found that when Shiqi should have nothing to do with Infanta Yuan, was it really just an accident? He bought it for his mother. I heard that Madam of the Prime Minister also likes the clothes in your Butterfly Clothing Shop very much. Chu Luqin pulled Xiao Wanru over and said with a lazy smile. Speaking of Butterfly Clothing Shop, Xiao Wanru was concerned. She pulled Chu Luqin and said, what about my Butterfly Clothing Shop? I'm afraid Prince you will find out. So what? Can't you open your shop? Chu Luqin said indifferently. If they find out about me, they will find out about you. It's not good. If the matter of Duke Yong's mansion is investigated carefully, it's not good for anyone to take the blame. Xiao Wanru said worriedly. Since Chu Luqin was involved, it was not a small matter. This was also the reason why she preferred to handle some things within her power by herself. She didn't want to get Chu Luqin involved if she could. Can you think of a way to protect Butterfly Clothing Shop without letting others know that it belongs to me? Xiao Wanru asked. Beg me. Chu Luqin said lazily. What? Xiao Wanru widened her watery eyes in astonishment, thinking that she had heard it wrong. Beg me. This time, it was obvious that Prince Chen, with a handsome face, said shamelessly, I have to collect some interest, right? It's okay if there's no capital, but if there's no interest, how can I make people work? Why do I need interest for this kind of thing? Xiao Wanru pinched his hand with hatred. However, although he looked weak, he was actually not weak at all. After Xiao Wanru pinched his hand, he didn't take it seriously. Instead, He raised his pair of handsome eyes and said, "Princess Chen, you can't make people work without paying interest. Even if you are my princess, you have to figure it out so that you won't be entangled in the future." "Who will be entangled in the future?" Xiao Wanru blushed and said angrily. "Of course, you will be entangled in the future. Do you want to be entangled in the future with others?" Chu Luchen pulled Xiao Wanru into his arms and pointed to the handsome face. "Princess, do as you see fit." Of course, the so-called entanglement was only between him and Zhuozhua. As for others, they should stay as far away as possible. When Shiqi looked strange, or it could be said that when Shiqi looked strange when he saw Zhuozhua. It seemed that he had a lot to say to her, but he didn't seem to be very familiar with her. This feeling was very strange, a little entangled, but there seemed to be no problem. Chu Luchen didn't doubt Xiao Wanru, but he didn't like when Shiqi who was clingy and didn't want to let go of her. He used to think that when Shiqi was a big shot, but now he felt very annoyed. He couldn't give him a chance to get close to Zhuozhua, in case something happened. Xiao Wanru knew that he was thick-skinned, but she didn't expect that he was so thick-skinned that he pointed to his face and wanted her to kiss it. She reached out to pinch his face. However, Chu Luchen pressed her back to the bed, and then kissed her until she was confused. In the end, she was held in Chu Luchen's arms with her hands and feet sore. "How about I ask a supervisor to recognize this shop?" Chu Luchen held Xiao Wanru in his arms with satisfaction and asked with a smile in her ear. Xiao Wanru kicked him fiercely and said, "No, it will still remind people of you. Then ask the people in your shop to show filial piety to the supervisor in my mansion." Chu Luchen reached out to hold Xiao Wanru's messy little foot and pinched it a little hard. Xiao Wanru hurriedly withdrew her foot and struggled to get rid of his big hand. Her face was as red as blood, and she gasped, What do you mean?" Afraid that he would make trouble again, she simply held his waist tightly with both hands to prevent him from moving again. Chu Luchen felt that this posture was very comfortable, so he stopped making trouble with Xiao Wanru. It is not easy for some shops without any background to survive in the capital city, or they can show filial piety to a person with a background. There are many shops like this in the capital city. If they show filial piety, they can ask the supervisor in your mansion to help them deal with some small affairs. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and said. She naturally didn't have such confusion, so she had never encountered such a thing. "Yes, but it's only a small matter," Chu Luchen said. Xiao Wanru rolled her watery eyes and immediately understood the profound meaning of it. Wasn't it just a small matter? Even if Chu Luyue suspected her butterfly clothing shop, he didn't dare to make a big deal. After all, Prince Yu's mansion might be involved. As for Wei Dehai, it seemed that Wei Dehai didn't dare to make a big deal, so it was also a small matter. If it was a small matter on the surface, it would be easy to deal with it. If it was a secret matter, there would be other means. At least on the surface, it could be justified. It had little to do with Prince Chen's mansion. It was even normal for Chu Luchen to say that he didn't know it. After all, it was a matter of the supervisor in the mansion. "Okay, then I'll show filial piety to the supervisor." Xiao Wanru nodded with a smile. This was a good idea. It seemed that there was no connection, but there was a connection. If there was a connection, it was very faint. "You'd better show filial piety to me. Give me some money first." "Hua Hua, I heard that your highness has made a lot of money," Chu Luchen teased. "No," Xiao Wanru said coquettishly and rolled her eyes. "There must be. Let me look for it." Chu Luchen pressed Xiao Wanru on his body and reached out to touch her body. Xiao Wanru giggled and rolled on the bed while shouting, "You, get off. Get off. I won't. I won't. I'll look for your highness's private money," Chu Luchen said shamelessly. The two of them played noisily on the pit. Chu Luchen left in the morning the next day. Xiao Wanru sent him to the city gate and watched the carriages go out in groups. Chu Liuchen's carriage was at the forefront. Qin Huayong followed the carriage on a horse. Commandery Prince Qing also rode a horse and followed them as a guard. Behind them were the other members of the envoy. They were accompanied by a large number of knitwear, some medicines, and beautiful porcelain. These were all gifts for the envoy. Xiao Wanru stood on the city wall and watched the team slowly go out of the city. She bit her lip. Before they left, she had already missed him. Although Chu Luchen had recovered, his foundation was not very good. Even though he had practiced martial arts since he was a child, he still needed to recuperate slowly. Xiao Wanru was extremely worried about Chu Liuchen's trip to the Su state in the southern border. But since Chu Luchen had made up his mind, she would not object. She could only follow him. No matter what the road ahead was, she would accompany him. In the last life, they might have been separated, but in this life, they would never let go of each other. So what if it was the blood realm in the dream? If that person was Chu Luchen, she was willing to accompany him into the sea of blood. With the dream in the last life, her heart had always been much colder than that of ordinary women. Repay kindness with kindness and revenge with hatred. If she repaid hatred with kindness, how could she repay kindness with kindness? Your Highness, let's go down. His Highness has left. Yu Jie said to Xiao Wanru, who was standing on the city wall. There was only a distant shadow of the envoy left, and they could not see anything else. The wind on the city wall was also strong, making their cloaks rustle. Your Highness, let's go down. It's too windy here. Chu Lu also advised. Xiao Wanru withdrew her gaze reluctantly, sighed softly, and nodded. It was useless to stay here. She just hoped that he could come back safely soon. Two maids helped Xiao Wanru down from the city wall. As soon as she stood still, she suddenly heard a voice, Princess Chen. Xiao Wanru looked sideways and saw Wen Shiqi in an official uniform. She blinked her watery eyes, bowed sideways, and said, Greetings, Your Excellency. What is Princess Chen doing up there? Wen Shiqi looked up at the high city wall above and asked. Our princess is sending our master out of the capital city. She wants to see him more clearly from up there. Yu Jie answered. Your Excellency, what's the matter? Xiao Wanru looked at Wen Shiqi calmly and asked. Wen Shiqi was not among the officials who sent the envoy off just now. It was a little strange for Wen Shiqi, who was dressed in an official uniform, to appear at this time. Princess Chen, can I have a word with you in private? Wen Shiqi reached out to point at a tea house diagonally opposite and said, There is a case involving Princess Chen. I want to ask Princess Chen something. Wen Shiqi's words were very polite, and his gestures were also very polite. He gave way to her with a smile. It seemed that he had to do it. Chapter 966. Please, Your Excellency. Xiao Wanru nodded calmly. Wen Shiqi led the way in front, and Xiao Wanru followed him into the tea house with two servant girls. At the sight of Wen Shiqi's clothes, the people in the tea house knew that he was from the Ministry of Justice. Xiao Wanru looked rich and noble. They didn't know what had happened, but they didn't dare to make any noise. The two of them asked for a private room, and the waiter led them up. After sitting down, Xiao Wanru didn't drink tea, but directly asked, Please tell me what's the matter, Your Excellency. Wen Shiqi reached out to pour a cup of tea for Xiao Wanru, pushed it in front of her, and poured a cup for himself. He picked up the tea and took a sip before slowly putting it down. Is Princess Chen the owner of Butterfly Clothing Shop? Don't you know it? Xiao Wanru said coldly with deep eyes, but she didn't avoid his question. Others didn't know about it, but Wen Shiqi was the one who handled it. At that time, he helped her get the shop. Has Princess Chen's Butterfly Clothing Shop done anything else? Wen Shiqi said after a moment of silence. What do you mean? Xiao Wanru became calmer. Wen Shiqi was stunned by her question. After thinking for a while, he said, Prince Yu has noticed your butterfly clothing shop. He didn't evade it and came straight to the point. It's just a shop doing business. How could it have anything to do with Prince Yu? Xiao Wanru said calmly. I heard that Fanglan embroidery shop, which made a lot of noise before, had an accident when it was doing business with Butterfly Clothing Shop. The incident of Duke Yong's mansion came from here. Wen Shiqi looked straight at Xiao Wanru and asked. There are many shops doing business, and almost all the shops in the capital city may do business together. As for Fenglan embroidery shop, I didn't know about it until later. If I had known such a background, I wouldn't have done business with Fenglan embroidery shop at that time. Xiao Wanru said calmly. Princess Chen thinks so, but Prince Yu may not think so. Wen Shiqi hesitated for a moment and said. So what? Xiao Wanru raised her eyebrows. She was no longer the second Miss Qin who had just arrived in the capital city. Prince Yu may deal with Butterfly Clothing Shop. Wen Shiqi said gently. This time, he didn't disguise himself at all. It seemed that he didn't try to disguise himself when he came here today. If a prince wanted to deal with a small shop, no one would be able to stop him. Xiao Wanru slightly raised the corners of her mouth with a faint and cold smile. Prince Yu is too self-centered. There are many shops in Fenglan embroidery shop. Does he want to seal up other people's shops one by one? If Chu Luyue did this, she would care even less. It was not good for Chu Luyue to make a big fuss. If he was involved in Duke Yong's mansion, Chu Luyue would not get any good. Butterfly Clothing Shop is different. What's different? Is it because I'm the boss? Xiao Wanru asked. Prince Yu doesn't know that Butterfly Clothing Shop belongs to you. Wen Shiqi shook his head and denied it. Xiao Wanru raised her eyes and looked at Wen Shiqi's face carefully. She didn't think he was lying and said, Thank you, Your Excellency. Since Wen Shiqi didn't say it, it was good for her. No matter what reason Wen Shiqi had, Xiao Wanru had to thank him. If Wen Shiqi didn't say it, Chu Liuchen's plan could be carried out. Yesterday, Chu Liuchen had found the supervisor and arranged all the affairs. She went to see the supervisor and arranged all the affairs. Prince Yu will deal with Butterfly Clothing Shop. Princess Chen, be careful. Wen Shiqi stood up, cupped his hands to Xiao Wanru, and then strode away. Your Highness, did third young master Wen come here just for this? Yujia looked at the slightly closed door of the private room and was surprised. It seemed that he was trying a case, but he just came here to say such a sentence. What did third young master Wen mean? Yujia didn't think that third young master Wen was very familiar with her master. I don't know. Xiao Wanru shook her head suspiciously. She was also a little puzzled by Wen Shiqi's actions. Just like what happened yesterday, Wen Shiqi's appearance was also inexplicable. Your Highness, do you want someone to keep an eye on him? Chu Lu suggested. The prince was not in the mansion now, so they had to serve the princess more carefully. No, he is from the Ministry of Justice. If we keep an eye on him, he will find out. Xiao Wanru said. The officials of the Ministry of Justice had their own team and were sensitive to some things. Before things were clear, Xiao Wanru didn't intend to let someone keep an eye on Wen Shiqi. He didn't give her the feeling that he was dangerous. Maybe it was because of the last life. She didn't have much hostility to Wen Shiqi, even though she knew from Chu Liuchen that Wen Shiqi and Chu Luyue were very close. It seemed that some of Chu Liuyue's schemes were obtained from Wen Shiqi, just like the rumor about the Bane, who almost killed her. However, the last life was the last life, and this life was the current life. Xiao Wanru could still distinguish it clearly. Let's go. Xiao Wanru also stood up. Yujia hurriedly asked the waiter to pay the bill, but she heard that Wen Shiqi had already paid the bill when he left. After coming down from the tea house, they got on the carriage parked on the side. The carriage turned a corner to return to Prince Chen's mansion, but it was blocked halfway. Xiao Wanru looked ahead through the curtain slightly lifted by Chu Lu. There was a lot of traffic jam ahead, and the carriage parked in front could not move at all. Let's go and see what's going on. Xiao Wanru said. Yujia jumped out of the carriage and ran forward. After a while, she ran back panting and said, Your Highness, let's take a detour. The intersection ahead is blocked. They say that they want to make way for the imperial examination, so the road over there is blocked. Why doesn't the carriage in front turn back? Xiao Wanru rolled her watery eyes and said. Since the road was blocked, they could turn back. Why did all the carriages follow them and block the road? The blockage is not tight. Some carriages tried to pass through here, but they were stuck. The later carriages bumped into them again. I'm afraid that they can't come back even if they want to. Yujie said as she lifted the curtain and went back. At this time, there were carriages coming over. However, when the later carriages found the accident in front, they didn't insist on coming over. They were all moving back, not as tightly blocked as the one in front. Let's go. Xiao Wanru nodded. The carriage made a turn, got out of the crowd with difficulty, and went to the street outside. It took a long time to come back. When they returned to Prince Chen's mansion, it was almost lunchtime. After freshening up, Xiao Wanru sat down on the couch by the window and asked, "Is Nanny Dong here?" The matter of Dai Qing House had been arranged yesterday, and the news had also been spread. Since a steward of Prince Chen's mansion had been given as a gift, Nanny Dong certainly had to send some gold and silver as a gift. Madame Dong is here. She is drinking tea in the flower hall outside. Yujie came in with a smile. Invite her in. Xiao Wanru ordered. Yujie after a while, she came in with Madame Dong. After bowing to Xiao Wanru, Madame Dong looked at Xiao Wanru with concern and asked, "Princess, are you all right yesterday? What happened after yesterday was all in the palace, and then it was sealed. It was not something that a commoner like Madame Dong could know." Madame Dong, don't worry. Our princess is fine. The second young master Chu's hand was broken by our prince. Thinking of this, Chula felt relieved. Infanta Yuan tried to plot against the princess, but in the end, she failed. Even her brother's hand was broken by the prince. She deserved it. The second young master Chu's hand was broken by the prince? Madame Dong gasped. Although she saw that Xiao Wanru was fine, she did not expect Prince Chen to be so powerful. No matter what, the second young master Chu was the lineal grandson of Ruiping Great Elder Princess. The second young master Chu's hand was broken, so Infanta Yuan should be much more peaceful. Xiao Wanru said lightly and asked someone to serve tea. Prince, you should deal with Dai Qing House secretly. You should be careful in recent days. You should make contributions, but don't make mistakes. Your Highness, don't worry. I will be very careful. Madame Dong said with a serious face. I guess, he didn't use official means. Prince Yu is also afraid that the Emperor will find out about him, but he can't bear it. No matter whether Dai Qing House is innocent or not, Prince Yu must mean to vent his anger on Dai Qing House. Xiao Wanru tapped her fingers on the table gently. This was the only possibility she had thought of just now. Chu Luyue did not dare to use official means, so he could only use some private means. Such means were often dirty tricks. If there is anything you can't deal with, come to Prince Chen's mansion to see me. Xiao Wanru reminded Madame Dong. If Chu Luyue took action, she would definitely not be able to bear it. Even if Madame Dong could make a good plan, it would not be easy to deal with it. Your Highness, don't worry. I will definitely report it to Prince Chen's mansion. Madame Dong was also cautious. After thinking for a while, she said seriously. Knowing that it was not something she could handle, she insisted on doing so. In the end, she messed up the matter. It was not courage, but stupidity. Xiao Wanru nodded. She also thought it was the best way. After that, she told Madame Dong some things to pay attention to. Madame Dong listened carefully and then left. Xiao Wanru had made a good plan, but in fact, she was wrong. No one expected that it was caused by another thing. A thing that had nothing to do with Butterfly Clothing Shop, and a person who had nothing to do with Butterfly Clothing Shop. The second day after Chu Luchen left, the imperial examination in spring began. The examinees entered the venue, and the whole capital city seemed to be quiet all of a sudden. There were many children from aristocratic families, and there were always some who left the venue. The examinees from outside the capital city also entered the venue one by one. The bustling street in the past seemed to have lost its lively atmosphere. As long as they talked about something, the first thing they mentioned was this imperial examination in spring. 3 years ago, the top 3 examinees in the imperial examination in spring were all outstanding. This time, they didn't know who would get the top 3 examinees. There were also some daughters of aristocratic families who were waiting to find a son-in-law. They wanted to find a husband who had a good future and was much better than many hedonistic sons of rich parents. Those hedonistic sons of rich parents were just eating and waiting to die. There were also those who didn't have their way and specially caused scandals and trouble, just like the 4th master of Prince Heching's residence. He was a first-class troublemaker and a master of embarrassing himself. Chapter 967. It was said that 4th Master Chu of Prince Heching's mansion hooked up with Madame D's daughter. They had an affair and had a child. Later, Madame D married Ning Yuan army general and raised Madame D's daughter into the first miss of Qin's family. Moreover, she was a vicious and dissolute first Mississippi. Fortunately, this first miss eventually married back to Madame D and harmed Madame D's own people. It could be said that karma was retribution and reincarnation. Ning Yuan army general was pitiful. He had raised his daughter for more than 10 years, but the one he doted on was someone else's daughter. Fortunately, he had another wife now. It was said that on the day of the accident, Ning Yuan army general divorced Madame D and took her back to D's mansion with a mat. From then on, he had nothing to do with Madame D. It was understandable for him to do so. If Ning Yuan army general didn't have a wife and a son now, he would probably go crazy with anger. It was certain that Madame D had wronged him. Moreover, Ning Yuan army general was going to the Sioux state to contribute to the country. At this time, such a thing spread, inevitably many people sighed that a man inevitably had a bad wife and an unfilial son. Prince Heching's mansion, which had always been low-key, lost its reputation because of this incident. But also because of this incident, it emerged in front of everyone. As soon as Qin Huaiyong, who went on a diplomatic mission, left, everyone even inexplicably paid attention to Prince Heching's mansion. Duke Yong's mansion was gone and left the capital city. Prince Heching's mansion was left behind and was related to this incident. Even though Qin Yuru was nothing now and had been divorced by Madame D, at least she was the biological daughter of 4th Master Chu. His biological daughter was sentenced to be executed. Didn't anyone from Prince Heching's mansion come to visit her? According to well-informed people, even Princess Chen, who used to be at odds with First Miss Qin and was harmed by First Miss Qin several times, had magnanimously visited her in prison once. As her biological father, 4th Master Chu, did not visit her even once. Prince Heching's mansion really had no blood relationship. Early in the morning, Chu Huairan was called by his father. Chu Huairan, who had just come from a concubine's room, looked sleepy. One button of his clothes was left undone. It was obvious that he came in a hurry. After entering the room, he yawned and saluted. "Father, it's so early. What can I do for you? You didn't even let me have a good night's sleep." A teacup flew towards him. Chu Huairan reacted quickly and dodged to the side. After being hit so many times, how could he be slow? "Father, you can just say what you want to say. Why are you smashing people without saying anything else?" Chu Huairan was much more clear-headed now, and he asked impatiently. "You evil creature, you need me to tell you what you did?" Prince Heching was furious when he saw his 4th son like this. "It's not the first time I've been like this. Haven't I always been like this for so many years? Father, why do you have to mess with me?" Chu Huairan said nonchalantly. He sat down on a chair by the side and took a sip of the tea that had been served. "You evil creature, you still dare to speak." Prince Heching looked to the side, grabbed something, and was about to smash it down again. "Father, if you don't speak properly, I'm leaving." "Aren't you tired of smashing things all day long?" Chu Huairan snorted unhappily, extremely dissatisfied with his father's antics this early in the morning. If he had the time, he could have spent more time sleeping at his concubine's place. It's not a big deal. Wasn't it just an illegitimate daughter? Father, an illegitimate daughter? What's the big deal about having a daughter? She's going to die anyway. Didn't you go through the same thing before? Chu Huairan said. In terms of daughters, he had quite a few. Some were raised in his own courtyard, and some were not raised in his own home. Even he didn't know how many daughters he had. Anyway, they were raised in other people's homes, so of course, they were other people's daughters. Wasn't Qin Yuru surnamed Qin? What did it have to do with him? When he first saw Madame D, he felt that she was not bad and wanted to seduce her. He didn't expect that she was born to be a slut. Before he could seduce her, she took the initiative to approach him, and after he succeeded, she actually wanted him to marry her. How could that be possible? He had a wife, and she was a cousin who grew up with him. How could he divorce his wife for Madame D? After that, Chu Huairan ignored Madame D. When Madame D married far away, she sent him a letter saying that she was pregnant with his child. So what? Was he the kind of person who lacked children? To him, there was no difference between a daughter and a son. He ignored the letter and threw it aside. Later, when Madame D married far away, he just watched the show like an outsider. Then he threw the matter away. Only now did he remember this matter. After so many years, there were still people who brought up this old matter. It was really annoying. An illegitimate daughter. She's the illegitimate daughter of Ningyuan army general. Prince Hechin looked at his son's useless appearance and became increasingly angry. What's wrong with Qin Huayong? He's not the only one who was cuckolded. Chu Huairan said indignantly. Seeing his father glaring at him and about to smash something again, he immediately weakened. Okay, he's different. He's a hero who fought for the country. I'm useless. But now that things have happened, what else can I do? Can I let Qin Yuru return to Madame D's womb? His words became more and more obnoxious. Prince Hechin was so angry that his whole body trembled. He only felt that he had given birth to such an evil creature. If he had known this would happen, he would have strangled him when he was born, lest he brought harm to his family. Go and see Qin Yuru. Prince Hechin put down the ornament in his hand and said angrily. See her? Chu Huairan cried out, shaking his head vehemently. Father, I'm not going. This lass is too ruthless. She's even willing to harm her own mother, let alone me. If I go, I'm afraid I won't be able to come back. Looking at his son's useless appearance, the old Prince Hechin became even angrier. This was indeed a useless man. How could he be afraid that his daughter would harm him? She's your bloodline. Don't you want to see her? Now in the capital, only your bloodline is closest to her. Prince Hechin suppressed his anger and said to the old prince. So what? For so many years, she's been fine without me. Chu Huairan shook his head vigorously. He really didn't want to see Qin Yuru. Previously, when Qin Yuru came to the mansion, he only took a glance and told the truth, saying that Qin Yuru was his daughter and that the evidence Madame D presented was true. But that was all there was to it. Could it be that he had to bear some responsibility? He remembered that his father was very happy to have such a daughter at that time. He even drove him out and said a lot to Qin Yuru. He didn't hear those words, but he could see that his father was very happy. He didn't feel any burden to acknowledge this illegitimate daughter. After that, he repeatedly said that he would ask the emperor for a title in the future to restore Qin Yuru's reputation. Chu Huairan felt that these things had little to do with him. Since his father had taken over, what else did he want him to do? He didn't care very much, but it was good to solve this matter. He didn't expect Qin Yuru to be such a vicious woman. On the way to Prince Hechin's mansion, she burned her own mother to death. After knowing this news, Chu Huairan felt that he didn't want to see this daughter anymore. She was not a delicate and weak girl, she was clearly a demon who wanted to kill. Madame D was dead. Would it be his turn next? Go see her today and bring her some food. No matter what, she's still the bloodline of our Prince Hechin's mansion. The more Prince Hechin looked at his son's behavior, the more displeased he was. But no matter how displeased he was, he could only watch. At present, only Chu Huairan could save some reputation. Father, what are you looking at? This vicious daughter, whoever wants her can have her. Anyway, I don't want her. Didn't you like her very much before? I won't go. Father, you can go. Anyway, just pretend to acknowledge her affectionately. It won't be long before our lives are cut in half. You don't have to do too much. Chu Huairan pursed his lips and said. He really didn't want to go. He thought that it would be better for his father to take responsibility for everything. In the beginning, it was his father who took responsibility for everything. Now, they could do it together. How could he let him go? He was a playboy who achieved nothing. He just wanted to live a comfortable life. How could he have so much energy to do other things? Recently, it was not easy to be a playboy in the capital city, especially after Chu Er was defeated by Prince Chen. When a group of playboys gathered together, they all felt that it was necessary to stop for a period of time. Otherwise, no one knew what would happen. Anyway, it was certain that things were not going well recently. This was also the reason why Chu Huairan didn't go out last night and just fooled around in his mansion. Anyway, Fourth Master Chu made up his mind that he would not see Qin Yuru, even if he had to die. She was a woman who would kill him, and his daughter, who would kill him. If he saw her, he might have nightmares every day and could not enjoy himself. Fourth Master Chu was determined to see Qin Yuru. Prince Hechin also regretted that he had some ideas after reading Madame D's letter. That letter talked about the fact that Duke Yong's mansion was secretly raising a lot of women. It seemed that a relative of the royal family had reached out to Duke Yong's mansion and asked Duke Yong to help raise them. As for who it was, Prince Hechin thought that it must be one of them. If he investigated it carefully, he would definitely get something. This was also the reason why he immediately recognized Qin Yuru and talked with Qin Yuru for a long time with kind words. Prince Hechin's mansion was weak, and the sons it gave birth to were mostly disappointing. Even if they were successful, they could only maintain the status quo. The decline of Prince Hechin's mansion was inevitable, and the bloodline of the royal family became more and more distant. At this time, they lacked a good opportunity. The arrival of Qin Yuru gave them this opportunity. No matter who was behind Duke Yong's mansion, it would be an excellent credit to find out or blackmail them. Unexpectedly, before he could find out the truth, Qin Yuru was exposed. Even the matter of raising a thin horse in Yangzhou was exposed. What else did old Prince Hechin want? Chapter 968. You have to go today, even if you don't want to. Someone, drag fourth brother away. Prince Hechin slammed the table and said sternly. It turned out that Qin Yuru was indeed his descendant. Even if Qin Yuru had committed such a treacherous crime, Prince Hechin's mansion had to go and have a look, lest his reputation became even worse. Two guards came in and reached out to pull Fourth Master Chu. Go, 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 I'll go, all right. Don't pull me, my clothes are new, who's going to pay for them if they're wrinkled? Chu Huairan stood up angrily and pushed away the two guards' hands. He rolled up his sleeves and looked at his father, who was sitting on top of him. Father, I'll say the ugly things first. It's fine if you take a look, but I'll leave after that. Don't get anyone to stop me, or it'll be even more embarrassing for you in the prison. Hurry up and go. Prince Hechin felt that he couldn't control himself and wanted to smash things again. I'll go, I'm not afraid of you. Chu Huairan muttered and turned to leave. He got on the carriage and went to the Ministry of Justice. When he arrived at the Ministry of Justice, he informed the officer of the Ministry of Justice. The officer took him to the prison, and then asked the female head of the prison to bring Qin Yuru over. Although Fourth Master Chu was here to visit the prison, he didn't want to go downstairs. He felt that the downstairs was full of bad luck and would ruin his good fortune. The officer had no choice but to bring him upstairs. Fortunately, he wasn't a useful master, and Qin Yuru didn't commit a crime of treachery, so he didn't need to guard her so strictly. Qin Yuru was brought to a small room. When she saw Chu Huairan sitting inside, her lifeless eyes immediately lit up. Her knees softened, and she knelt down with a plop. She said with tears in her eyes, "Father." She had seen Chu Huairan when she went to Prince Heching's mansion before. "You, get up and talk." Although Chu Huairan didn't want to see Qin Yuru, when he saw her thin and haggard appearance, he inexplicably felt like a father, so he waved his hand and said, "Father." Qin Yuru lowered her head to the ground and cried again, but she was already sobbing. Chu Huairan turned around uncomfortably. Get up, if you have anything to say, we can talk." "Yes, father." Qin Yuru answered and stood up. She looked at Chu Huairan with excitement and vitality in her eyes, which was much more pleasing to the eye than the lifeless look before. "Sit down." Chu Huairan pointed to a chair beside him. "Yes." Qin Yuru sat down obediently and stared at Chu Huairan. She looked as if she was longing to put her father in her heart. Chu Huairan coughed softly and asked, "Are you used to living here?" "You, ti. Yuru, to chint to say. He, she, out, ts, t. T's to tes, Yuru." Qin Yuru lowered her head and cried, "Yuru, I wouldn't really kill my mother. Even if I'm worse than a pig or a dog, I wouldn't really kill my mother." "Are you saying that Qin Huayong plotted against you?" Chu Huairan's brain worked fast and his face darkened. Although he didn't care much about Qin Yu, if Qin Huayong really did it, it would be a slap to his face. It was a small matter, but it turned out to be a big deal. He was in a bad position now. If it was really Qin Huayong's plot, he wouldn't let it go so easily. Why was he the one with a bad reputation now? Why did Qin Huayong get the sympathy of others? Although Chu Huairan didn't have a good reputation, he cared about his own reputation at this time. "Father. I wanted to reunite with you and recognize you as my daughter. Maybe our family could live happily together in the future. Why would I kill my mother at this time? Wouldn't it be better to have her with us?" Qin Yuru said in a sorrowful voice. "Together as a family?" Chu Huairan felt that Qin Yuru was still too naive. Even if Madame D was here, he wouldn't let her into his backyard. Not to mention that Madame D was the legal wife of Ningyuan army general. Even if she wasn't, he wouldn't want her. Madame D was a shrew. If she came to his backyard, many beauties would be disturbed. Of course, he couldn't say this to his daughter. Chu Huairan coughed softly and said, "Do you have any evidence to prove that Qin Huayong killed you?" "Father, that's Qin's mansion." I don't have any evidence. Even if I did, it would be gone by now." Qin Yuru shook her head. Her eyes, which had brightened when she saw her biological father, darkened with a sense of grievance because of his words. She looked more and more pitiful. Chu Huairan didn't have much of a father-daughter relationship, but at this moment, he felt angry. He was angry at Qin Huayong's scheme. Qin Huayong must have known that he had cheated on him, so he came up with this plan to kill Madame D. He was originally a playboy with no real ability. Because of his identity, he was surrounded by a group of people who fawned over him. How could he have any good schemes? Moreover, he didn't think that Qin Yuru felt that Madame D's character had blocked her path to success, so she simply killed Madame D in order to gain the pity of Prince Heching's mansion. "Just you wait, I'll ask your grandfather to investigate. I'll definitely get to the bottom of this matter." Chu Huairan slammed his hand on the table and put on the airs of a father. "Father, don't go. It's not a big deal. Really, let it be. Anyway, I'm like this now, alone and without any attachments. It's good for me to die. After I die, I can go to the world to accompany my mother. It's just that I can't be filial to you." Qin Yuru said and started sobbing. She looked at Chu Huairan with tears in her eyes, as if she wanted to see Chu Huairan's face clearly from the bottom of her heart. She wanted to remember her biological father in her heart and never forget him. Looking at Qin Yuru like this, Chu Huairan felt inexplicably uncomfortable. No matter how bad his daughter was, she was still the blood of the royal family. Qin Huayong couldn't hurt her just because he wanted to. You stay in this prison for now. I'll ask someone to take care of you. As for the evidence, I'll investigate it. Once I get to the bottom of it, I'll definitely save you. Chu Huairan said. There was still some time before the execution. Chu Huairan felt that if there was really something wrong with his father's means, he would definitely get to the bottom of it. Father, there's no need to go through so much trouble. I'll only remember your kindness. Even if I die, I'll definitely be grateful to you. Qin Yuru cried. Tears streamed down her face like rain. She was ashamed and in pain, but she didn't want to put her biological father in a difficult position. She would rather give up her life than put her father in a difficult position. If Qin Yuru had come in to ask Chu Huairan for help in the investigation, given Chu Huairan's character, he wouldn't have taken it to heart. He had always been indifferent to his children. But now, Chu Huairan had taken the initiative to ask for Qin Yuru's help, but Qin Yuru had refused because she didn't want to trouble her father. Chu Huairan felt that his daughter was not bad. No matter how he looked at it, she didn't seem like a matricide. He said, "All right, you can go back first. I know what to do." It was impossible for Qin Huayong to climb over his head. The female jailer came to pull her away. Qin Yuru stood up and respectfully kowtowed to Chu Huairan a few times. Then, she reluctantly left in tears. Chu Huairan stood up and went to look for the officer of the Ministry of Justice with his servant. He told him to take good care of Qin Yuru and repeatedly said that Qin Yuru was his blood. He hinted that Qin Yuru might be able to turn the situation around and said that Qin Yuru wasn't a vicious person who killed her mother. The officer of the Ministry of Justice didn't have a high position, so he didn't dare to refuse. Of course, he kept nodding to show that he would do as Chu Huairan said. He would never let Miss Qin feel wronged and would take good care of her until she left the Ministry of Justice. Chu Huairan was very satisfied with the officer's judgment. He left a sum of money and asked the officer to take care of Qin Yuru according to his instructions. Then, he went back to the mansion with his servants to look for Prince Heching. As soon as he left the Ministry of Justice, someone reported to Xiao Wanru. Looking at the news in front of her, Xiao Wanru raised the corner of her mouth. "Miss, will Fourth Master Chu investigate the matter of First Miss?" Yujia asked curiously. She had seen how glorious this eldest young miss was in the past, but she could not understand the current situation. Would this Fourth Master Chu really investigate this matter? Why would he ask someone to investigate such an obvious matter? It could be said to be a fact with irrefutable evidence. Although he won't investigate, at least he expressed his intention. Qin Yuru's life in prison will be much better, and she will never be like before. Xiao Wanru said lightly and said meaningfully, in this way, it will also be convenient for her to do many things. Of course, it will also give some people false information, which will help her a lot. Qin Yuru hadn't taken action before, not because she didn't want to, but because she was looking for a good opportunity. Now that this opportunity was presented to her, on the one hand, it would make the jailer relax a little, and on the other hand, it would make Qi Tianyu think highly of her. Qin Yuru with Prince Heching's background was completely different from Qin Yuru without Prince Heching's mansion. Since Chu Huairan said that he would help her to investigate the case and reverse the verdict, it represented a possibility that Qin Yuru might be innocent. If she was innocent, she would definitely be released, and people would naturally think highly of her because of the royal bloodline. Continue to keep an eye on her, and also on Qi Tianyu's side. Xiao Wanru gently tapped her fingers on the table and said. Next, Qin Yuru should take action. As expected, the next day, she received the news that Qin Yuru tried to ask the female jailer to send a letter to Qi Tianyu. After receiving Qin Yuru's letter, Qi Tianyu didn't go to see Qin Yuru immediately. Instead, he postponed it until the evening and took a carriage to the Ministry of Justice quietly. Although he was not an official of the Ministry of Justice, he had friends in the Ministry of Justice, so it was not difficult for him to meet Qin Yuru secretly. Chapter 969. Brother Qi. Seeing Qi Tianyu, Qin Yuru was very excited. She wanted to approach him but dared not. She stood there with tears rolling down her cheeks. Suddenly, she knelt down and kowtowed to Qi Tianyu. Then she prostrated herself on the ground and said, "Brother Qi, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Like Chu Huairan, Qi Tianyu didn't go to the cell to see Qin Yuru. Instead, he brought her to a small room on the side. He didn't want too many people to know that he had been here. "Sister Yuru, get up," Qi Tianyu said slowly when he saw Qin Yuru like this. The girl in front of him was no longer the bright and beautiful girl she used to be. At that time, Qin Yuru was at the right age, bold and passionate. She didn't have so many rules and regulations in the capital city. They were childhood sweethearts and had a special relationship. Qi Tianyu felt that they would be together when they were young, so he treated Qin Yuru wholeheartedly. Under the moonlight and flowers, they had many intimate moments without the elders' knowledge. Although they didn't go to the last step, they always hugged each other. Thinking of it now, it was like a lifetime ago. The woman in front of him had long lost her lively appearance. She was thin and shriveled. Looking at her appearance, she was actually more than 10 years older than his younger sister. Her eyes were lifeless and lifeless. No matter how one looked at her, it made one feel dispirited. Qin Yuru got up and sat on a stool on the side cautiously. She put her hands on her coarse dress and looked up at Qi Tianyu with tears in her eyes. "Brother Qi, I regret it." Qin Yuru slowly lowered her head and looked at her hands. Although there were still tears in her eyes, there was a smile on her face. But this smile made people feel even more bitter. Qi Tianyu didn't say anything. He just fell on the table in front of him and tightly pursed his lips as if he was still studying the lines on it. Qin Yuru said again, "Brother Qi, I'm just like this now. If there is a next life, I will never let you down. I will never let myself fall step by step into such a situation. In the end, I even ended up killing my mother." Speaking of this, Qin Yuru's smile became wider and more tears fell. She looked very pitiful. In the end, Qi Tianyu sighed and raised his head. "Sister Yuru, it's useless to say this. It's all in the past." "Is it all in the past?" "It's true. When I was in Jiangzhou, it was the happiest time for me. I was carefree and didn't have too much. But my mother repeatedly praised Duke Yong's mansion, and repeatedly said that if I didn't marry him, she would break off the mother-daughter relationship with me. At that time." At this point, Qin Yuru burst into tears again. She cried so hard that she could not control herself. Qi Tianyu's voice was muffled. When her sobbing voice became lower, he slowly said, "It's useless to talk about it now. It's all over." "No, I didn't. If it weren't for this, I wouldn't have," Qin Yuru retorted excitedly. She realized that she was wrong when she said this, so she stopped immediately. The meaning in her words was very clear. "You mean, you killed your mother because she forced you to marry into Duke Yong's mansion?" Qi Tianyu asked in surprise. Unlike Chu Huairan, he knew that there was basically no possibility of Qin Yuru's case being overturned. This should be the truth. However, he was still surprised to hear it from Qin Yuru. "My whole life was ruined by my mother. My mother was ruined. Although she gave birth to me, she also ruined me. Now that she's dead, I've also sacrificed my life for her. I don't owe anything to my mother. Only you, only big brother Qi." Qin Yuru was so emotional that her voice cracked. She couldn't continue and burst into tears. She meant that she and Madame D were even now. The only person she felt sorry for was Qi Tianyu. Even though Qi Tianyu did not have any feelings for Qin Yuru now and even hated her, he still felt pity for her when he heard what she said. The deep love in this could not be expressed in a few words. Elder brother Qi, tell me some things about Jiangzhou. I don't have any other thoughts now. I only feel that I have lived a real life when I occasionally recall those days. Qin Yuru said, looking up at Qi Tianyu with a face full of expectation. It took her a lot of effort to hold back her sadness. Such a request was really hard to refuse. Qi Tianyu pondered for a while and then slowly talked about some old things in Jiangzhou. They were all old things that happened when they were young. Now that he thought about it, it really felt like a long time ago. At first, Qin Yuru just listened with tears in her eyes. Later, she interrupted from time to time. When they recalled the past, they both felt a little nostalgic. One was talking while the other was listening. Time passed quickly and 2 hours had passed. Qi Tianyu stood up and said with humility, Sister Yuru, I have to go back. Brother Qi, please. Qin Yuru stood up and turned sideways to wipe away her tears. Then she forced a smile, which looked even more bitter. If you want to know about the old things in Jiangzhou, I can ask my servant to come and talk to you. Qi Tianyu thought for a while and said. Thank you, Brother Qi. I only have you now except for my father who came to see me. Qin Yuru lowered her head with tears in her eyes. She was very thin now, which made her look even more thin and pitiful. It was totally different from the situation when she was in Jiangzhou. If Qi Tianyu hadn't seen Qin Yuru in such a situation, he would probably think that the person in front of him was a different person. After sighing, Qi Tianyu said, Sister Yuru, you don't have to be so polite. I can only do this now. I will come to see you sometimes. Thank you, Brother Qi. Qin Yuru burst into tears again and then looked at Qi Tianyu eagerly. After Qi Tianyu left, she still looked at his back with tears in her eyes. The female jailer came to pull her, and she begged, I will watch him for a while longer. When I see him leave, I will go back. He paused for a moment and then left. Your Highness, what does the first miss want to do? Does she want to renew the old dream with the first young master of the Qi family? When Qin reported it to her, Chu Lu blinked and asked in confusion. Would Qin Yuru be sincere? Of course not. Xiao Wanru put down the medical book in her hand and shook her head. How could Qi Tianyu be cheated? With Qi Tianyu's character, it was impossible for him to rekindle the old dream with Qin Yuru. Qin Yuru was very clear about this. However, for the sake of their past relationship and Prince Heching's mansion, he could take care of Qin Yuru for a while. As long as Qin Yuru's conditions were not too excessive, Qi Tianyu would agree. Qi Tianyu was the victim of Qin Yuru breaking off the engagement. Now Qi Tianyu took care of Qin Yuru. Those who knew it would only say that Qi Tianyu was generous and valued friendship. As an official, his reputation was very important. Did the servant go there? Yes, he went there early the next morning. The first young master of the Qi family had an appointment with the prison guard. The servant went in with a meal to visit First Miss Qin. He sat in the female prison and chatted with the first Miss Qin for 4 hours. When he came out, he seemed to have been rewarded and told the jailer happily that he would come again tomorrow. Qin said. It was not difficult to find out the information, but it was not clear what it was about. The prison was guarded very tightly. It was not easy to find out what it was about. Of course, if Xiao Wanru really wanted to find out something, Qin also had a way. Find a way to get in touch with the servant and find out who he talked about with Qin Yuru. Then get close to him as a servant of Prince Heching's mansion. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and had an idea. Compared with going to the prison to inquire about it, it was much easier to inquire about it directly from Qi Tianyu's servant. This servant was Qi Tianyu's servant and also came here with Qi Tianyu from Jiangzhou. He had no doubt about Qi Tianyu's loyalty, but he was greedy and would say anything after drinking. It was reasonable for him to inquire about Qin Yuru with the identity of a servant of Prince Heching's mansion. Chu Huairan had been to the prison before, which showed that Prince Heching's mansion still recognized Qin Yuru. In the eyes of those with ulterior motives, there was a lot of room for manipulation. Whether Prince Heching's mansion did it for fame or for other reasons, it had been confirmed that Qin Yuru was Chu Huairan's daughter. "Your Highness, do you want to get in touch with him right away?" Qin said after thinking for a while. "Don't inquire about it first. Just get in touch with him first, lest he arouses Qi Tianyu's suspicion after drinking. Let's wait for a few days first." Xiao Wanru shook her head and said, "Find a way to make him believe that the person he met was a servant of Prince Heching's mansion." Qi Tianyu's servant was usually a cautious person. It was impossible for him to drink with a stranger like this. She had to make him dispel his suspicion first. If Qin Yuru wanted to find out something from the servant, it would not be easy for her to do so in a short time, and she would also dispel his suspicion. The matter about her parents in Jiangzhou was full of doubts. Xiao Wanru couldn't find out anything from Qi Tianyu, but Qin Yuru could. Although Qin Yuru couldn't compare with Qi Tianyu, her current situation could dispel Qi Tianyu's suspicion. To find out the matter in Jiangzhou, she still had to get it from Qi Tianyu. Qin Huayong and the magistrate of Jiangzhou must know something. There was no evidence in the capital city, but what about in Jiangzhou? Qin Yuru was a chess piece she played. Now it depended on whether she had to use this chess piece. "Your Highness, don't worry. I will arrange for someone to get in touch with the servant. I will take him to drink after he trusts me. I will get in touch with him these days." Qing immediately understood Xiao Wanru's meaning and said. Then she left to make arrangements. The guards and some secret guards in the inner courtyard of Prince Chen's mansion were in the hands of Qing and she would protect Xiao Wanru closely. Before Chu Luchen left, she called Qing over and told her a lot. As soon as Qing left, Yu Jie suddenly came in with a smile and reported, "Your Highness, Miss Zhang is here to see you." The so-called Miss Zhang was Miss Zhang Qilan, the daughter of Prime Minister Zhang. They had met in the Yuhui nunnery before, and they got along very well at the consort selection. Although she was now Princess Yu, Xiao Wanru still appreciated her very much. Chapter 970. Princess Chen. When Zhang Qilan saw Xiao Wanru, she bowed respectfully. Xiao Wanru pulled her up with a smile and teased, "I have to call you sister-in-law in the future." Although she was generous, Zhang Qilan still blushed and threw her a handkerchief. "Look who I brought here." Zhang Qilan stepped aside, revealing a charming girl following behind her. She had thin eyebrows and a beautiful face, which looked very thin. When she looked at people, she looked a little timid. This kind of timidity was inexplicably familiar. Zhang Qilan rolled her watery eyes and couldn't help showing a surprised expression. It was actually an acquaintance, Luo Xiaowan, the daughter of Duke Yangxiu's wife. "Xiaowan greets Princess Chen." Luo Xiaowan took 2 steps forward and saluted Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru hurriedly reached out to help her up and said excitedly, "Sister Xiaowan, is it really you?" "It's me." Seeing Xiao Wanru's intimate attitude, Luo Xiaowan breathed a sigh of relief. There was a smile in her eyes and she nodded. "That's great. I haven't seen you for so long. I heard that you are recuperating. Why haven't you gone out?" Xiao Wanru was indeed very grateful to her old acquaintance in Jiangzhou. At this time, she couldn't help asking. "I'm not in good health, so I've been recuperating." Luo Xiaowan lowered her head and said vaguely. Zhang Qilan said, "Xiaowan, it's been so long. Besides, it's not your fault, so you don't have to feel embarrassed." Her words sounded quite reasonable. Xiao Wanru asked, "What's wrong? Did something happen? Do you still remember that 3 years ago, when you met the young madam of Duke Yangxiu in Jiangzhou?" Zhang Qilan said without so many scruples. "Qilan." Luo Xiaowan stamped her feet and said with a blush. "Let's go in and talk." Xiao Wanru looked at the people waiting on her left and right and said. Just now, in order to welcome Zhang Qilan, she specially came to the gate of the courtyard. At this time, everyone blocked the gate of the courtyard to talk, and a large group of servant girls and old maids were waiting on them. Yes, I've forgotten myself for a while. Let's go in and talk. Zhang Qilan immediately understood that this place was indeed not the place to talk. The three entered the main room together and took their seats as guests and hosts. After the maids served tea, Xiao Wanru waved her hand and Yujia left with a group of maids and old maids, leaving only the three of them in the room. What's going on? Xiao Wanru asked. Princess Chen. Luo Xiaowan wanted to say something but stopped. She bit her lip, lowered her head, and twisted the handkerchief in her hand. For a moment, she did not know where to start. Zhang Qilan took over the topic. 3 years ago, the young madam of Duke Yangxiu took Xiaowan to go on a blind date. It was a marriage that was related. The two families had discussed it. After that, the man moved and was no longer in the capital city, but the marriage was still valid. The young madam of Duke Yangxiu was a person who loved her child. She took Xiaowan on this trip. Unexpectedly, she found out something. Xiaowan Xiao. And Wan. Looked. Wang Tuqiu. Xiaowan. 2. Xiao Xiao. Luo, and, he. Xiao. When they stayed in Jiangzhou for one night, they went to the place where they wanted to go. That family also stayed there. Unexpectedly, they met Princess Chen there. Then, Xiao Wanru became more careful. When you were in Jiangzhou, Madame D had a good reputation, but in fact, she had a sweet face and a bitter heart. She even wanted to sell you because you blocked her daughter's way. The family that Xiaowan booked is also very good. In the past, when the news came, it was also a perfect person. Xiao Wanru was very satisfied. She took Xiaowan there. She just wanted to take a look and then the matter would be settled. I didn't expect that there was a person like Madame D who was so good at pretending. Xiao Wanru specially rushed to the place and arrived one day earlier. Zhang Qilan paused. The family that Xiaowan booked is also very good. In the past, when the news came, it was also a perfect person. Xiao Wanru was very satisfied. She took Xiaowan there. She just wanted to take a look and then the matter would be settled. I didn't expect that there was such a person like Madame D in this world. Xiao Wanru deliberately rushed to the place one day earlier. Zhang Qilan stopped for a moment. Xiao Wanru didn't answer. Her expression clearly showed that she was listening carefully. She did listen very carefully. In the last life, Luo Xiaowan didn't live a happy life. The family that she booked was an ungrateful person. She didn't know if the family she was talking about now was the same family. Judging from Luo Xiaowan's attire, she should still be unmarried. Even if there was something, it was still not too late. Xiao Wanru couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. After entering the capital city, she hadn't seen Luo Xiaowan and didn't know her specific situation. Even if she wanted to remind her, she couldn't. In fact, that family is not so good. Xiao Wanru went to that place one day earlier and happened to see the young master buying jewelry with his two delicate concubines. At first glance, she knew that he was a dissolute man. Xiao Wanru was so angry that she slapped the young master and then rushed back to the mansion angrily. She wanted to break off the engagement, but Xiao Wanru didn't want to, so she delayed it for 3 years. Hasn't it been resolved yet? Xiao Wanru's heart skipped a beat and she asked. Not yet. Xiao Wanru was so obsessed with marrying the young master that she didn't care about Xiaowan at all. It was useless for Xiao Wanru to say anything, so she could only delay it like this. Now this family actually sent a letter and insisted on marrying Xiaowan. Xiao Wanru was furious. Zhang Qilan sighed. Anyone who encountered this kind of thing would be worried. Luo Xiaowan was not a strong person, so she would be even weaker now. I haven't seen Sister Xiaowan in the past 3 years. Is it because of this? Xiao Wanru blinked her eyes and asked. I'm not in the mood. My mother also told me not to be ostentatious. No matter whether I break off the engagement or not, this kind of thing is not good for a woman. Luo Xiaowan's eyes turned red. Even after 3 years, she still remembered the appearance of that dissolute man very clearly. At first glance, she could tell that he was not a good person, but he actually talked so extravagantly. Even if she died, she would not marry such a person. Why didn't Xiao Wanru break off the engagement? Xiao Wanru thought of the most important point. Since they were not a good match, why was Xiao Wanru unwilling to consider for her granddaughter? This marriage has something to do with Marquis Xing's mansion, Zhang Qilan said. What do you mean? Xiao Wanru became more and more confused. In fact, this marriage was made by old madam of Marquis Xing's mansion. When I was young, the two families began to discuss it. If I break off the engagement at this time, my grandmother said that it would make old madam of Marquis Xing's mansion lose face. Luo Xiaowan spoke this time. She looked up at Xiao Wanru with a pleading face and said, Princess, can you help me and ask old madam of your mansion to make an arrangement? Old madam mentioned the matchmaker. Xiao Wanru became more and more surprised. After taking 8 or 9 turns, this matter came to her. Well, I have to admit that the matter of fate is really too wonderful for words. Even if it is the matchmaker mentioned by old madam, it can be solved. Why has it been delayed? This matter sounded more and more mysterious. In the last life, she did not meet young madam of Marquis Yangxiu in Jiangzhou, and young madam of Marquis Yangxiu did not see Madame D send someone to harm her. Of course, she would not suspect the family who was engaged to Luo Xiaowan because of this. She went there on the scheduled route and did not see the dissolute child. After that, they got engaged. Not long after, Luo Xiaowan got married and lived a miserable life. The marriage was a tragedy. Now because of her rebirth, Luo Xiaowan's fate was changed. As a result, Luo Xiaowan had not gotten married yet, and it seemed that this marriage would not happen. She had met young madam of Marquis Yangxiu that day. She was a straightforward person. Since she could not let go of this marriage, she had made up her mind not to let Luo Xiaowan marry him. She would rather let Luo Xiaowan become an old girl than marry him. In this case, why couldn't she solve it? Old madam of Marquis Xing's mansion and her grandmother did not have such great power. In fact, this matter is not only about old madam of your mansion, but also about the empress. Zhang Qilan said discontentedly, originally, this was just a trivial matter. I don't know how that family had a relationship with the empress. The empress came forward and asked old madam of your mansion to be the matchmaker. If it was just a simple marriage, the woman would not be willing if she was not willing. However, it was about the empress. This was not an ordinary matter. If this marriage was dissolved, it would be a disgrace to the empress. Marquis Yangxiu was not young madam of Marquis Yangxiu and did not have such courage. This matter was delayed again and again until now. This was also the reason why Luo Xiaowan had not appeared in front of others. With such a bad thing, no one was in the mood to have fun. In addition, Luo Xiaowan was such a cowardly person. She almost washed her face with tears every day. Luo Xiaowan was inexplicably like herself in the last life, and she couldn't help feeling a little pity in her heart. Is this the reason why you came here this time? Xiao Wanru's eyes flickered slightly and she asked. Please help me, Princess Chen. Luo Xiaowan stood up and was about to salute Xiao Wanru, but Xiao Wanru held her and said earnestly, Sister Xiaowan, don't be so polite. When I was in Jiangzhou, young madam of Marquis Yangxiu helped me. Sister Xiaowan and I hit it off at first sight. Now that we meet again, you don't have to be so polite. I will definitely find a way to help you. When she was in Jiangzhou, she owed a favor to young madam of Marquis Yangxiu. Later, when she came to the capital city, Marquis Yangxiu also helped her. Thank you, Princess Chen. Luo Xiaowan's voice was a little choked with sobs. She was moved, and most of the anxiety on the way here disappeared. 3 years ago, she and Xiao Wanru wanted to make peace. But now 3 years had passed, and Xiao Wanru's identity had changed dramatically. It was not necessarily useful to recall the past. Tell me, what does Marquis Yangxiu mean? What does young madam mean to do to minimize the damage of this matter? Xiao Wanru raised her eyes and looked at the two of them. These were all key questions. She had to figure it out first. Chapter 971. My grandmother said that she would listen to old madam of your mansion. She didn't want to offend the empress for me at all. My mother insisted on breaking off the engagement. She said that she would break off the engagement even if she had to raise me all the time. Luo Xiaowan couldn't help crying when she remembered that her mother had been punished by her grandmother to kneel. If it weren't for her, how could her mother have been punished by her grandmother to kneel for 4 hours? Marchioness Yangxiu is obviously afraid of being punished by the empress, but in fact, that family has almost nothing to do with the empress. She just said it casually at that time. I'm afraid that the empress can't remember that family now. There is no need to say anything in front of the empress. Just break off the engagement directly. Zhang Qilan said angrily. Marchioness Yangxiu was useless, and old madam of Marquis Xing's mansion was shrewd and unwilling to take this responsibility. So after so many years, the engagement had not been broken off, and now that family had come to find them. That is to say, without the guidance of old madam of our mansion, that family can't see the empress? Xiao Wanru raised her watery eyes and asked. Yes, it's true. That family is not a rich family. They are just an ordinary aristocratic family, and they left the capital city early. They can't be compared with Marchioness Yangxiu's mansion. At that time, because that family was not as good as Marchioness Yangxiu's mansion, young madam thought it was not bad, so she agreed. Zhang Qilan said. She had a good relationship with Luo Xiaowan when she was young. Luo Xiaowan had not appeared in front of others for several years, and she had visited her in private, so she knew a lot about Marchioness Yangxiu's mansion. She also became more and more indignant for Luo Xiaowan. Luo Xiaowan was a coward. It was okay for young madam of Marchioness Yangxiu to protect her. If she married into another noble family, she was afraid that she would not have a good life. It was better to marry a lower noble family and take care of her own family. This was also the original intention of young madam of Marchioness Yangxiu's mansion. However, she didn't expect that although that family was not as good as Marchioness Yangxiu's mansion, it also had a relationship with the empress. Even the empress mentioned it, and old madam of Marquis Xing came forward to arrange the engagement. That is to say, as long as our mansion's old madam agrees, she can help to dissolve this marriage, and it won't disturb the empress. Xiao Wanru had roughly figured out the whole story of this matter. It's true, but your mansion's old madam is such a smart person. How could she be willing to do such a thing? The wife of heir of Marquis Yangxiu has come to your mansion several times, but your mansion's old madam either pretended to be ill or hurriedly said that she had something to do after seeing you for a while. She made excuses several times and didn't take back the gifts she sent. Zhang Qilan sneered. Old people become shrewd. They won't release the eagle until they see the benefits. This matter did not sound difficult. A descendant of a fallen aristocratic family, even if he did not do anything wrong, a mansion like Yangxiu Marquis residence could easily find a reason to retreat. But the empress was involved, so it was not simple. It was not that the empress liked this family very much, but it was a disgrace to the empress. No matter what, this matter was proposed by the empress and represented the empress's intention. It was fine if the empress didn't know these things. If she knew, she would accuse her of lying. Although the empress was not the emperor, this crime could be serious or trivial. It was obvious that Marquis Yangxiu's wife would rather give up a granddaughter than offend the empress. As for old madam, of course, it had nothing to do with her. Originally, this matter had nothing to do with her. How could she offend the empress for Luo Xiaowan? Even if the empress didn't know it at this time, it was possible that she would know it in the future. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and asked, is the son of that family now in the capital city? Yes, with a few old maids and maids, he said that he wanted to marry Xiaowan. He doesn't know if he is worthy. Zhang Qilan curled her lips and said. She really didn't like this family. She had secretly asked her elder brother to check it before, saying that the man was not a good person. After entering the capital city, he went to the red light district. In the past few days, he would go to such a place when he was free. Xiao Wanru already had an idea in her heart, so she said with a smile, "After this matter is blown up, we will break off the engagement." Blow up? Luo Xiaowan said excitedly, "If it is blown up, will they really break off the engagement?" She really didn't want to marry such a person, and she didn't want her mother to suffer more grievances because of her. If Zhang Qilan hadn't dragged her here today, she wouldn't have come. "Sister Xiaowan, are you afraid of losing your reputation?" Xiao Wanru asked. Zhang Qilan hesitated, and her eyes suddenly flashed twice. She, who was the most talkative, fell silent at this time. "I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of anything. Mother said that even if she raised me, she would not marry me to such a family," Luo Xiaowan said with rare firmness. She held the handkerchief tightly in her hand and tried to encourage herself. No matter what, she would not break off the engagement. Her mother was punished by her grandmother again and again for her marriage, but she still endured it. What else couldn't she endure? So what if she didn't marry for a lifetime? Her mother said that even if she didn't marry for a lifetime, it was better than marrying such a person. With the words of the heir of Marquis Yangxiu behind her, Luo Xiaowan was very determined. "Princess Chen, is there any way?" Zhang Qilan asked, "Do you want them to break off the engagement voluntarily, or do you have to?" This way of breaking off the engagement would not hurt the woman. In fact, no matter how it was, it would hurt the woman a little. The world was not so tolerant of women. It was obviously the man's fault, but people would also talk about the woman. "Let's go and have a look first." Xiao Wanru thought for a while and stood up. "Okay, let's go now. Big brother told me just now that that person is in one place." Zhang Qilan also pulled Luo Xiaowan to stand up. Luo Xiaowan bit her lip and nodded. The tavern was not big, and it was not on the busiest street, but many people had heard about it. It was also famous in the capital city. Some people took a few detours to come to this tavern. On the one hand, it was because the wine in this tavern was really good. On the other hand, it was also good to not be on the street. If they called a few prostitutes to play together, it was better not to go to the tavern on the street, so as not to be seen by others. After all, it was not beautiful. There were many playboys in the capital city, but more people did not want others to see them visiting the brothel. Perhaps their families were already married, or their families were strict. For various reasons, it was better to avoid it. Of course, this was relative. It was just to avoid the brightest place. This tavern was not a secret place in the capital city. After Lu Xinqing arrived in the capital city, this was the place he came to the most. Their family was originally from the capital city. Later, after they were released from the capital city, they had never had a chance to return to the capital city. But even so, Lu Xinqing still came to the capital city from time to time and was familiar with some of the brothels in the capital city. Even if they were familiar with each other, they had a few scoundrels with them. Now in the capital city, there were no elders to suppress him, so he could play as he wanted. He was very happy. Every day, he called a few brothel girls, drank wine, and sang songs. It was also a happy time. In fact, Lu Xinqing didn't want to marry at all. He didn't want to marry that skinny little Miss Luo from 3 years ago either. He really didn't like that girl who didn't look like she had grown up. She was not even as good as those mistresses he had in the brothel. Which one of them didn't have an enchanting figure? Yangxiu Earl's mansion dragged on for 3 years, but he was not in a hurry. It was better this way. Without a wife in the house, he could find any woman he wanted to play with. From time to time, he could bring the women he liked back to the mansion. If he liked them, he could play with them more. If he did not like them, he could give them away. Such a leisurely life could not be done now. When his father went out, he made it clear to him that if he did not get the marriage with Yangxiu Earl's mansion this time, he would have to control him in the future and not let him indulge in debauchery like before. Hearing this, Lu Xinchen went to the capital city without saying anything. He thought that when he entered the capital city and said a few good words, Yangtze Earl's mansion would settle the marriage. He did not expect that Yangtze Earl's mansion did not say anything. Originally, he did not want to marry, but with his father's words, coupled with the obvious attitude of Yangtze Earl's mansion, Lu Xinchen was not happy. Even if he did not want to get married, it was him. Why did such a little girl not like him? Lu Xinchen was very unhappy. At this time, he was holding a charming woman in his arms. He drank the wine in the cup in one gulp and then put it down heavily. He scolded, "Why don't you take a look at yourself? How dare you be so picky? If I don't marry her, who else will marry such a dry woman in the future?" That's right. If it weren't for the previous engagement, Brother Lu would have married a beautiful woman. How could Yangtze Earl's mansion take advantage of him? I heard that the one in their mansion is useless. Not only is she not good-looking, but she is also timid. How could such a woman be the madam of the family? That's right. Someone flattered him. Lu Xinchen invited people, and he was the one who paid. Naturally, he was the boss. If there was anything, it was him who said it. If it were not for the empress who arranged the marriage for us before, I would like her. Lu Xinchen was a young man with oily hair and a powdered face. He was not bad-looking, but his eyes were dark and his face was pale. At first glance, people could tell that he was a man of debauchery. No matter how they looked at him, he was not a good person. At this time, he slapped the table hard and became more and more energetic. "Master, why do you like her? Isn't it better for you to like me?" The woman sitting in his arms teased him coquettishly and leaned her soft body over. "Of course, I like you. How can I like her? There is nothing good about her. How can she be sweeter than a beauty?" After saying that, he leaned over and kissed the corner of the beauty's mouth. His hands were not slow, and he gently stroked the beauty's delicate body. "Master, you are so annoying," the woman said coquettishly. She reached out and pushed him, but then she pulled him over. In front of everyone, the two of them teased and kissed each other intimately. The people next to them cheered loudly. In the private room next door, Luo Xiaowan's face was as pale as snow. She pressed the corner of the table tightly and bit her lower lip with shame and indignation. Even if she was weak, she could not bear it. How could she tease her fiancé as such a woman? How could she be such a good match for him? She was so reckless. Chapter 972. They found this tavern and happened to find that the private room next to Lu Xinchen was empty, so the three of them asked for this private room. After coming in, they heard the dirty words of the people next door, but Xiao Wanru did not take this marriage seriously at all and casually teased the prostitutes. "Even if I die, I will not marry him." Luo Xiaowan bit the corner of her lip and said with hatred. Her previous confidence was completely based on the words of the heir of Marquis Yangtze, but now it was her true heart. What she saw was completely different from what others said. Luo Xiaowan was a little weak before. Even though she said firmly, in fact, it was all because of the heir of Marquis Yangtze. But now, she was completely following her heart and mind. There was no one who knew her heart better than now. Xiao Wanru nodded secretly. She wanted Luo Xiaowan to see her heart clearly and make her more determined, so that she would not flinch again when others said it. In this kind of thing, if the person concerned flinched, the others would not only be in a difficult situation, but also would be blamed. It was the best to see it clearly and make the right decision. "Xiaowan, have you really made up your mind?" Zhang Qilan also understood the meaning of it and deliberately asked. "Qilan, I would rather die than marry such a person." Luo Xiaowan said firmly, looked at the person next door fiercely, and squeezed the handkerchief in her hand into a ball. Then she looked at Xiao Wanru expectantly and hesitated for a moment. She was still not confident enough to face Xiao Wanru. 3 years ago, they didn't talk much. Although they got along well, they didn't talk much. Now after 3 years, Xiao Wanru's identity had changed too much. She was still the miss of Duke Yangxiu's mansion, but the one in front of her was Princess Chen. Sister Xiaowan, do you dare to go over? Xiao Wanru asked with a smile. I dare. Luo Xiaowan forced herself to calm down and said. Well, Xiaowan, do you dare to pour this water on that person? Xiao Wanru pointed to the teapot placed aside. There was tea in it. Although it had been there for a while, it was still hot. I can do it. Luo Xiaowan said. Princess Chen, what do you mean? Zhang Qilan asked in surprise. Xiao Wanru said lightly, Sister Wanru, if you dare, just do it. That person looks very arrogant. After being splashed by Sister Wanru in front of so many people, he will definitely fly into a rage out of humiliation and beat you. What should we do? This person doesn't look like a good person. He will definitely beat Xiaowan. Zhang Qilan sat up straight anxiously. Luo Xiaowan was such a delicate person. It was obvious that she would be at a disadvantage. Of course I want him to do it. If he does it, Sister Xiao Wanru can escape. Qilan, does your eldest brother know some officials? Xiao Wanru looked at Zhang Qilan with a smile. Although my big brother is not very useful, he still knows some people, including officials. Zhang Qilan patted her chest and said. As the son of Prime Minister Zhang, even if he did not have a serious job, many people were willing to make friends with him. Moreover, although this child Zhang had some special hobbies, he was not a playboy. He was also in contact with young talents and many of them worked in various ministries. Ask your brother to invite a few friends here. Xiaowan made trouble and happened to be seen by others. If there are people from the Ministry of Justice, it would be even better. They can directly bring this matter to the Ministry of Justice. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and said meaningfully. Zhang Qilan did not understand what she said. She blinked and looked at Luo Xiaowan. Luo Xiaowan was even more confused. Obviously, she did not understand, this kind of thing can be brought to the Ministry of Justice. Even if that person hit Xiaowan, it is not a big deal. This kind of thing can't be brought to the Ministry of Justice, right? If this matter was brought to the Ministry of Justice, it would be making a fuss. The Ministry of Justice is the best. No matter what, it is a fact that that person wanted to hit Sister Xiaowan in the street. Such a fact is there. Xiaowan Street is afraid to report to the Ministry of Justice because the people of the Ministry of Justice are there. They will reach out when they see it. At this time, of course, Sister Xiaowan will catch whatever she sees. That is to say, this matter can be brought to the Ministry of Justice. Zhang Qilan was not stupid. After blinking a few times, she suddenly understood and nodded repeatedly, yes, this matter will be big. They dare to hit someone before they get married. After they get married, they will torture them to death. Moreover, there are prostitutes. Even the Empress can't stop them from breaking off the engagement. Xiao Wanru smiled and said nothing. At this time, of course, she could not be pessimistic about this kind of thing. Moreover, she was a miss from a meritorious family, not a cat or dog picked up from somewhere. The reason why Madame Yangxiu and old Madame of Marquis Xing's mansion kept this matter a secret was that they were afraid of offending the Empress. What they wanted to do was to expose this matter and let people see the filth hidden behind this marriage, instead of looking at everything on the surface and thinking that it was good. But I rush in like this. Luo Xiaowan was a little flustered again. She looked at Zhang Qilan and then at Xiao Wanru with an extremely helpless look. It's not good for Sister Xiaowan's reputation to make such a big fuss, but, since Sister Xiaowan has heard their filthy words, it's not too much for her to rush over and splash tea on them. Xiao Wanru said slowly. Although she could come up with an idea, the final decision was still made by the person herself. If the person herself still had such a suspicious attitude, in fact, this matter could not be done. She could help Luo Xiaowan, but she could not help her for a lifetime, let alone help her bear all the consequences. But since she was not even afraid of death, it did not matter what happened next. The young madam of Marquis Yangxiu was also a strong person and would definitely protect her daughter. It could be seen from the fact that she bore the pressure of filial piety and kept her daughter by her side for 3 years. It was just that the young madam of Marquis Yangxiu was strong, but her daughter was really weak. Just now, she said that she would not turn back, but after a while, she actually hesitated again. She had to encourage Luo Xiaowan to be strong. Xiaowan, if you don't do this, this matter will be settled, and even old madam of Marquis Xing can go to the palace to mention this matter again. At that time, it will not only be a matter of the Empress's words, but also a matter of seeking the Empress's decree. At that time, you have to get married even if you don't want to. Zhang Qilan also saw Luo Xiaowan's hesitation and became unhappy. If you think it doesn't matter, Princess Chen and I will not make you lose face. It must be such a big thing. At that time, you have to stand up by yourself. If you can't stand up, we will not help you, but harm you. These words were a little harsh, but she and Luo Xiaowan had grown up together, and their relationship was different from that of others. Others couldn't say this, but she could. Qilan, I was wrong. Okay, I'll do it. I'm not afraid of anything. Hearing their words, Luo Xiaowan also found her hesitation and said with a face full of shame. She stood up and bowed deeply to Xiao Wanru and Zhang Qilan. Princess Chen, Qilan, I was wrong. Since this matter can't be settled well, let's make it big. Sister Xiaowan, have you really decided? Xiao Wanru raised her watery eyes and asked. Yes, I've decided. Luo Xiaowan gritted her teeth and said. Then you must make him angry in a while, and he will definitely beat you. Can you do it? Luo Xiaowan was shocked. She hadn't mentioned this much before, but then she nodded fiercely. No matter what, she must do it. Seeing that she had really made up her mind, instead of the previous vague idea, Xiao Wanru nodded, and they went to make arrangements separately. Zhang Qilan went to her elder brother to do something, and Xiao Wanru went back to the mansion. She was now Princess Chen, so it was not convenient for her to show up directly. Zhang Qilan and Luo Xiaowan both advised her to go back first, leaving Luo Xiaowan and 2 maids alone here. After the others left, Luo Xiaowan sat in the private room and listened to the conversation beside her. The more she listened, the angrier she became. Calculating that it was about time, she gritted her teeth, stood up and picked up the teapot on the table. Her original timidity had long been melted by her anger. From time to time, they brought some dirty words to her. A dignified miss of Duke Yangxiu's mansion, in their words, was worse than a prostitute. Luo Xiaowan wiped her tears with red eyes and walked out. Even if she died today, she would drag this person down with her. If she didn't break off the engagement, she would die in the hall of the Ministry of Justice. With this in mind, she couldn't care less about the shame of a girl at this time. The 2 maids were also furious and followed Luo Xiaowan to the next room. The person next door was talking enthusiastically about the figure of a prostitute. Lu Xinchen was touching it while teasing Luo Xiaowan, saying that she didn't have a figure or a good appearance, and that she didn't know how to do things. He was afraid that if he leaned over, she would immediately be so scared that her face and neck would turn red. It was really boring. Such a woman is so boring. If it weren't for my father who insisted that I marry her and said that the agreement between the 2 families couldn't be broken, I wouldn't marry such a woman even if I died. I don't want her even if she gave me a gift. Do you want such a woman? Lu Xinchen drank a little too much and said with his tongue hanging. Of course not. Who wants such a woman? There are so many beauties here, and all of them are better than her. Immediately, many people shouted in agreement. The men were together, and there were female prostitutes on the side. Of course, they would say all kinds of dirty words. At this time, no one cared what they said, as long as they were happy. Master, are you still not as good as me? The female prostitutes also joined in the fun. Of course not as good as you, baby. Maybe in bed, you are like a dead fish. There is no interest at all. How can I be as sensible as you? Lu Xinchen teased. He reached out and kissed her again. His hands were even more presumptuous. The door was pushed open twice heavily. Luo Xiaowan came in with a kettle in her hand, followed by 2 maids. Looking at her aggressive appearance, the people in the room were shocked. Before they came to their senses, Luo Xiaowan had already recognized Lu Xinqing sitting on the right. She walked over, picked up the kettle in her hand, and poured it on Lu Xinqing's head. She said angrily, "Wash your mouth."